I'm going to turn my video off just for a second, but I'm still here. I just got to rearrange all my computers here for a second so I can see them better. Hang on. But go ahead and start the meeting, Barbara. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, we'll wait for, is it Melissa? Do we have Melissa today with us?
Good morning, everybody. This is Melissa. It's myself and Corey, and we are ready to go when you are.
Thank you. Okay, so Jeff said go ahead and start the meeting. So I'd like to call the regular board meeting of Tuesday, November 9th to order at 9 a.m. Melissa, would you please give call for the roll?
Okay, Director Balin.
Here.
Director Boatwright.
Here.
Director Kearns.
Here.
Director Murphy.
Here.
Director Ringen.
Here.
Okay, all 5 directors are present.
Thank you. So at this time, if you guys all put yourselves on mute, please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right, we'll begin with the public forum. We would like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This need not be related to any item on the agenda. However, the board cannot act on an item unless it was noticed on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. At this time, Corey, are there any members of the public that would like to address the board?
Not that is being indicated at the moment, no.
Thank you. Then we will close the public forum portion and go to consent calendar. Melissa, would you please read the items on the consent calendar?
Minutes of the regular board meeting of October 26, 2021, and special board meeting of October 28, 2021. Item number 2, approval of reimbursement claims for director's statement of meetings attended and or travel expenses and claim summary for October 2021. Item number 3, consider adopting a resolution making findings in support of continuing remote meetings pursuant to AB 361.
Thank you. So at this time, is there any director that would like to pull one or more of these items? Director Ringen.
Director Ringen, you're currently on mute.
Thank you for the reminder. Love to be stupid. I would like to pull 2 and 3, please.
Okay. Would any director like to pull number 1? Okay. So since we have 2 items pulled, why don't you go ahead, Director Ringen, with item 2?
Okay. I have several questions on the claim summary. Surprise, surprise. So on page 1, wondering what is the deal with Amos Screen Printing and Embroidery Incorporated, TUD embroidered polos and snapback TUD hats, $600.
I'll chime in here. Basically, we provide hats to the union employees as part of their uniform allowance. And as far as the polo shirts, the same sort of thing, certain individuals for, whether they're publicly speaking or at those 2, we occasionally will have pre-screened polo shirts. Amos Graphics does the actual screening to put the TUD logo on these materials.
Okay, thank you for that, Steve. I wasn't sure whether this was something in addition to the union employees' uniforms that they get. So that's good to know. On page 3, Bartel Associates Llc. You very well could have brought this up, Steve, at a meeting, and my feeble memory, I don't remember it, but $6,370. And what exactly did they perform for us for that amount of money?
Yeah, Bartel Associates is performing the biannual actuarial, and they were on hand at the board meeting to provide that presentation. Again, that's every 2 years.
Okay, so that's what they're doing, is getting us prepped for what we're going to have to spend for OPEB.
Yeah, that's the required actuary, both to participate in OPEB as well as to provide the budget for the next 2 years.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. On page 4, this is an interesting one. Betzler Heating and Air. Commercial Wi-Fi thermostats for TUD complex. Is this so that the temperature can be controlled at distance? Or I just need to ask what that's all about, because it's $9,500.
Yeah, this has been a project that's been requested by, I believe, the last 3 GMs. Basically, we have, 4 separate buildings here on our complex. I believe we have approximately 38 separate thermostats. We have in the neighborhood of 20 to 24 actual heating units. And all the thermostats we had were the 1990 models where you manually push it. So twofold. One, we wanted to have thermostats that were accurate and could be programmed so they weren't constantly being turned on, turned off, left on, to better control heating and air conditioning. And the second side is there is a smart Wi-Fi component to it. That wasn't our initial concern. Our bigger concern was to have the thermostats be accurately controlling it. And like I said, it was quite a process. They were replaced at every single facility. Like I said, I believe this is for a total of some 38 to 40 thermostats with the installation, with the changeover. And Corey is continuing to do some work to see how we can access those via Wi-Fi. But really the initial thing was to change them over and have them be programmed. And so far, so good. I think they've been operating great.
Well, that's good to hear. I just wonder who the unlucky thermostat monitor is going to be.
Well, nobody yet. Right now, Betzler set those. They're set at a certain high temperature and low temperature and programmed for day of the week. And like I said, Corey has to go through a completely different manufacturer to see about setting those up. But right now, they're just all standardized.
All right, sounds good. On page 5, and I'm just going to flip through this really quick. That's California Advocates, our state affairs advocacy. I can't even talk today. Yeah, So it looks like we might finally be starting to get some ROI on those folks. So I got my fingers crossed. It's a lot of money to go out the door every month without seeing anything in return. Page 6, Cintas Corporation, number 3. And actually, I don't know whether I need to get into that, because you kind of answered what I was going to link that to, and that was the Amos screen printing. So that's just a normal laundry service for the crews.
Yeah, maybe to give you a little background, Director Ringen, I know I wasn't at the last meeting where you brought it up, but the last meeting you mentioned, we did have a migration from Aramark to Cintas we feel drastically improve the level of service and the availability and ultimately the long-term cost. Our uniforms are part of the union's MOU. We currently, I believe, have 61 employees who are identified to be provided uniforms and laundry service. Depending on their position, they may get up to 13 sets of pants and shirts. So far, we've been experiencing about $800 per week. But again, we're still in the transition, getting the old ones returned and issuing the new ones on there. So again, what you're seeing here, I believe there were 5 weeks for this particular month, but hopefully that provides a little additional information.
It definitely does. And this must include their coveralls too, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it depends where, what they're getting. Some of them have more of the shirt type things. There could be a safety shirt involved, the pants, again, everything from the construction maintenance who never know if they're going to be working in water or sewer, to the water treatment operators, to the electrician. So there's a variety there of what they're provided. And there could be some specialty items that aren't part of this, like, the waders they use for pushing snow, floating snow, or like you mentioned, they may have some specific hazmat coveralls that are under more PPE. But, this is the basic for, like I said, these 61 employees as part of the MOU with the union.
Okay, thank you. On page 7, contractor compliance and monitoring, why are we still getting billed when there's nothing happening out there at the Phoenix Lake project? I thought it was shut down.
I can respond to that, Director Ringen. The project is actually still going on. We're trying to achieve final closeout with the State Water Board for the stormwater pollution prevention plan. And because there's still work, we have to maintain a labor compliance specialist, and that's what CCMI does. They do labor compliance, review all the certified payroll.
Okay, thank you for that. Page 8, DC Frost, brush clips. What in the world are those?
What page was that, Director Ringen?
Page 8, DC Frost. And it's brush clips for $3,400.
Don, do you know, is that part of regional or operators? I mean, it looks like there's 100 of them. I would have to pull the invoice in there. It just says 100 each brush clips, number 3585-002.
Heliclean high core brush clips, wear maintenance item.
Yeah.
That each clip is a stainless steel clip that holds a brush in place. And bringing that up, the wear cost of industrial items, components that wear out is another, key component to always watch for equipment that's purchased. It's about every 9 months, I think, that, this unit gets its repair job done on it.
Okay, thank you for that. So that must be for electric motors and stuff like that.
No, it's actually the perforated screen and the spiral brush that cleans the screen off.
Okay.
In the headworks, it's a channel mitts, and then there's the high core Heliclean that washes the rags, and then there's also the combi unit that is supposed to take the septic receiving facility.
There's a lot going on down there at that regional wastewater plant, I'll tell you.
Oh,
thanks for that. Page 9, Enviro USA American manufacturer, 50-foot by 15-foot type 1 impermeable curtain flotation.
Eric, can you do that as well? Is that the netting or the booms we had out there for the turtles, or I don't know. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm going to guess that that is a turbidity curtain that may be associated with some of the work our water treatment staff have done. But I don't know 100% on that, Director Ringen. We can certainly inquire and get back with you with an email with more specifics. But that sounds like a turbidity curtain that's used like in our sedimentation basin in lieu of the baffle walls that you may have seen at the Sonora Water Treatment Plant tour.
Okay, it was fairly expensive. It was close to $4,400. And I was wondering, the other thought that came into my mind is maybe it had something to do with that Matelo project.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could. Like I said, I'm shooting in the dark here, but we can get you a more precise answer. It just doesn't ring a bell right now.
Okay.
And just for everybody's benefit here, you know, I look at every single invoice, but as you can see here, I have this stuff happen like dozens of times every day. So sometimes it's hard to remember, but you know, if you ever reach out to me and want to know, I can pull the invoice and provide that, and I can have it before the meeting or after the meeting or whatever everybody wants. It's just, I can't tell a lot just looking at the claim summary, but anyway, we can certainly look that up and provide it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. And one of the reasons why I bring these things up is not only for my own information and so on, but I feel, maybe I'm wrong, but it probably helps my fellow board members understand some of the things that are going on. I mean, when you look at, we spend, and none of this is meant as a slap down to you, Steve, or anybody else. I mean, it's expensive to run this utility. But when we spend, well, this last month, we spent close to $950,000, and usually it's $1 million or more. And it's great, I think, if my fellow board members understand why some of these huge figures, where they come from. And when we're out talking to the public, we can talk a little bit more intelligently too, in my opinion. I'm almost done here. Let's see. Page 11. Yeah, this is a question of mine. Herc Rentals Incorporated, wheel loader for solids removal at Sonora Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. Why doesn't TUD own one of those? You would think that with all the gravel out in the backyard behind the TUD office, there'd be a use for it there, and it could be put on a trailer, run down the wastewater treatment plant when needed. I mean, I don't know, $1,671. That would be a real nice payment on one. I mean, you couldn't buy one for that, but be a nice payment on one, and then we wouldn't have to rent them.
Yeah, Director Ringen, I don't think you get any argument from the construction crews to go out and purchase one, although the fleet mechanics might have a different opinion, because we're just adding, rolling stock to for them to maintain constantly. The current use, I think we rent this 3 or 4 times a year, maybe 5 if there's some special projects. So it's a cost benefit. For me, it's to buy it. I bet it's $150,000 when we can rent it for $20,000 a year, maybe, and then maybe on somebody else.
Yeah, I just, for the guys out in the shop, that's called job security. And I don't know. I always like to have a piece of equipment that I know what condition it's in, and I know I can count on it when I need it. And
this goes into our analysis every year. A lot of conversations with the construction maintenance crews. They've got a laundry list of needs or wants, and we're picking them off one at a time.
I know there's only so many dollars. They don't stretch either.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the one that really got under my skin this time. Page 23. VNF Solutions LLC. My God, another $6,100 plus another $9,000, and we waved goodbye to them. Thank you, Pattison. Thank you, Brucker. We never got anything out of that group.
I will tag one on to here, in that I didn't catch this when it came through, but the 6,000 is actually separate and not part of the federal affairs advocacy. That's actually related to the FERC relicensing and Don working with, the attorney who's specializing in these FERC negotiations and discussions. So that probably should have been tagged separately. Again, that 6,000 has to do directly with the FERC and PG&E related things. So I apologize that I didn't catch that description there, but you are correct in the federal affairs advocacy. Now, some people would argue that the only reason we were successful with USDA for the regional plant was because of these people here. I think it was a lot of hard work on a lot of people's part. But again, that was part of the issue going into it with both federal and state lobbyists. Sometimes it's hard to analyze what are you really getting for your dollars there. And I think there's a wide opinions on that and how it does. But you're correct. This should be, I believe, the last payment to them for right now, unless we want to restart. And as I said, the 6,000 is related to the FERC.
Okay, thank you for that. That's it.
Thank you, Director Ringen. Any questions or comments from the board on this item before we go to item 3? Seeing none. Corey, any members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
Not that's being indicated, no.
Okay, thank you. Then Director Ringen, would you like to discuss item 3 for us? Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I've been approached numerous times by different ratepayers, and the question has been, why is TUD board directors still have their meetings not in the boardroom? And I said, well, because we're concerned about the COVID-19 situation, and it's not getting a whole lot better here in Tuolumne County. I know in the newspaper today, we unfortunately had 2 more confirmed deaths from COVID-19 and 23 new infections. So I think we've been doing the right thing, but I think we need to move forward in the fact that we need to know that COVID's here with us to stay. It's like the flu. I hate to say that, but that's the way I'm coming to see it. And we're going to have to learn to try and return to as much normal as we can, while still trying to make ourselves safe and live with this darn pandemic thing. I would appreciate and would like to see my fellow board members and staff start thinking about in-person meetings and making sure that the public could be involved and have their opinions heard and their concerns heard by Zoom or a easy to access telephone situation. So my suggestion is that the board and staff, necessary staff, meet with social distancing in the boardroom, and then we can include the public. I'm sure Corey can figure out how to do that so that it will be beneficial to our ratepayers or concerned residents. I know the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors and committees are now meeting in person, and Columbia College, I believe, does as well as many others. So it's not like we're going to be breaking new ground here. This is already being done. So that's number one. And what I'd really like to suggest is that the first meeting in January that we turn over a new leaf and put our best foot forward and start meeting in person. And that should give the board and staff time to get together on this and maybe have this be a agenda item for the December meeting. That's it for me.
Thank you, Director Ringen. I believe Director Kearns had his hand up first, and then Director Murphy.
Yeah, thank you, President Balin. As far as the meeting in person, I don't have a problem with that. However, I would have a problem if we still have to meet with masks and go through all that, because I believe there's value to us if masks are not going to be required. If they are going to be required at the meetings, at least on Zoom meetings, we're face to face. We can see us talk. I think there's value in that rather than sitting there all live with a mask covered up our face. It's a little harder to understand and whatnot. But that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you.
Well, Director Kearns, I agree with you. I wouldn't want to have to go through the mask routine either. And unless I'm mistaken, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but I think that the new rule is that if you're vaccinated and you have your social distancing and so on, and that room is well ventilated. I mean, it's not like it's dead air. I think that we're all going to be really safe. So, but
if I can,
my opinion.
Director Ringen, Director Murphy was next.
Yeah. So since you brought up Columbia College, so just so you know, doors, windows need to be open. Masks need to be on, everybody. Somebody needs to be playing mask police. Somebody, so that's all part of what we do every day. And we have reduced numbers. So 6 foot social distancing and masks and doors open. So as far as temperature, you have outside temperature. So bundle up on that thing. Other thing I just wanted to point out is we still have more people hospitalized in this county than we have ICU beds. So we have 6 ICU beds at our local hospital here. Right now we have 7 people hospitalized for COVID. Since I keep stats on everything just because I'm curious on trends. So the stats on between October 26th and today, which is a little less than 2 weeks, we've had 14 people die in just in Tuolumne County in that time period, which is about 2 weeks, which that's pretty significant still, what we're talking about here. And I agree with what Jeff Kearns is saying, Director Kearns is saying on that I'm not sure how much time you guys spend in masks, but I teach in a mask. And it is a lot of work to talk in a mask, and it's a lot of work to make sure everybody in the room is keeping masks on. I feel that I agree with Director Kearns in like right now I can see all of your faces and I can have close contact with everyone and I can understand what everyone is saying, because that's the other piece. I noticed we all went to the mountain counties. There were 3 of us in the room wearing masks. Masks are required in California and most people chose not to wear them. And the other thing that I noticed was the PA was, it hurt my ears how loud they had the sound. And I'm not sure why that was, but sound is, it's one of those things too. If you're going to be talking with a mask on, you really have to project. And to have a hybrid thing where people are trying to listen online, where someone's being recorded with a mask on in the room, is not ideal. And so I am very much on the side of, same with what Director Kearns said, is if you have to wear a mask to be in the room, I don't see the benefit of being in the room. And as far as being able to tune in on your phone or on Zoom, I believe on every agenda that we post, there's several call-in numbers, as well as the Zoom meeting number. And I think I'm out in the community more than you guys in a kind of bulk way because of teaching. And there's a lot of people, there's a lot of people getting COVID and not dying from it, but having a really crappy month and having residual effects from it. I have a lot of students that are, have been back in class for a month, but still don't feel good. And so I think, it's a real thing to consider what we are putting ourselves at risk of, as well as what we are putting the community members at risk of, because as you guys know, we do have a lot of the active people in our community are in the higher risk zone. Other thing I'd like to put out there is I think any additional risk of spreading COVID. We had a good friend who went to the emergency room for an infection, sepsis, from a pretty significant injury that he'd had earlier in this year that had gone into sort of infection. And he went to the emergency room here and with a fever. Pretty much all they did was COVID test him and send him home. He did not have COVID. 2 days later, he actually had to go down to Modesto to be seen at an ER. He had to wait for 4 hours. Eventually, what happened is he sat in a chair while they hooked him up to an IV. But they said if he hadn't gotten treated then, probably within the next day, he would have, a young, vibrant, healthy dude would have been dead. Not because he had COVID, but because all of the resources were being used to deal with the patients that had COVID. All the beds were full, all of the emergency service personnel were occupied. And that's in our area. That's our overflow hospital. So it's no joke to fill up our ICU beds. It's no joke to get in a car accident and get to a hospital where they can't treat you because all the beds are full. So if there are community members that need a little bit more education on this, I'm happy to provide them with the statistics on it. But it's a real deal that people are going to the hospital with other than COVID things and not being able to be treated because the hospitals in and around our area are being impacted by this.
Thank you. Director Boatwright.
Good morning. Just a little bit more on that and a little bit different side to it. I remember telling the guys that I worked with as COVID was spreading around the world that this was going to change us. Certainly Zoom meetings are a drastic change from the old school business go-to-meetings and all that, but there's an environmental side to it as well too, where there's a benefit of reduced miles being driven on the roadways. As far as the public, if somebody were to, come to the board and say, I don't like this Zoom thing and actually state that, I would support that a little bit more. But with our time frame of, Tuesday morning, 9 a.m. Go-to meeting, I really don't think that's going to increase our audience and public participation. And certainly all the other standpoints for this pandemic. And I agree with you, Mr. Ringen, that this is going to be around for quite a while, as far as it's going to go from pandemic to endemic, where it may be annual shots needed for everybody. But anyway, that's my side of it.
Thank you. Well, maybe I'll just weigh in. I think it's important that we keep the discussion going. Certainly this is we're not doing anything right now except just talking about it. I think everybody's concerns are important here. I agree. I don't really want to be in the boardroom with the public if I have to wear a mask. But I also see the benefit of just the board meeting in the boardroom doing the people's business on camera. I see a huge difference in the love. I just see a difference between the Zoom board member working on issues and in person working on issues. I'm not comfortable with the public there at all. I would prefer not wearing a mask if there's a blended approach, perhaps, but safety first. I think it's a killer. COVID is a killer. It's a real take no prisoners thing, and so we just need to make sure that we are in compliance. I'm sure that the county has their own interpretation of the compliance. I think that they do have masks on when they are in the public. I can't recall. Somebody else might know, but I agree with Director Kearns. I think it's important that we be able to read the room and have that exchange with our fellow board members in person as safe as possible. Any other board member would like to comment before we go for public comment on this item? Yes, Director Boatwright.
I'd just like to hear from Abby as far as our current, what our occupancy would, what our maximum occupancy of the boardroom would be if we were to go to in-person meetings and current district policy.
Good morning, directors. I think what I'm hearing is that at least I heard Directors Ringen and President Balin saying just the board members and maybe some staff. So we put together a couple of different options several months ago, and I believe the number is right around 10 in the boardroom to maintain social distancing.
If I can, I might just add, Corey didn't respond, but I did speak with Corey about this some time ago, and from a technical standpoint, it can be done. So that's being a hybrid approach where just the board and staff are in the room and the public is meeting through Zoom. So it can be done that way.
I'm looking up the Cal OSHA stuff right now. Do you have that up, Abby?
I don't have it in front of me, but do you have a specific question about our COVID prevention program?
It just says employees, if you're basically, it sums up that if it's not somebody you work, if it's not somebody in your specific work group that you're working with every day, you have to wear a mask.
So the guidelines, there's in our COVID prevention program, when that emergency standard came out earlier this year over the summer and was passed, it was passed as related to vaccination status. However, since then, CDC and Public Health has put out a recommendation for everyone to wear a mask indoors regardless of vaccination status. So that's why you see it differently throughout different companies throughout the county.
But the recommendation is masks indoors.
That is correct.
Yes.
Yes, Director Kearns.
Yeah, Abby, and just to clarify, that's a recommendation. It's not an actual regulation or mandate, correct?
That is my understanding. Yes. If you look at the documents from Public Health, it's bolded. The word recommends is in bold. Okay.
All right. So if we chose, we could do our in-person meetings and not wear masks. Is that correct or not?
We would have to have at least a self-attestation to a vaccination status.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it.
And with Brown Act kind of stuff, are we allowed to exclude public from meetings? It doesn't seem like we would be.
So if there was a hybrid, whether we're 100% virtual or if there's some sort of a hybrid approach where we would be prohibiting the public from in-person access, we would still need the board to adopt the resolution that is before you today, the resolution to have exemptions to some of the Brown Act regulations with respect to in-person meetings and then where board members are attending the meeting from. So either way, the only way we would not continue under this AB 361 would be a full in-person meeting with the public being allowed to be present.
Yeah, so I think something that we had talked about before is, I'm not comfortable. Like if we know there's enough of a risk that we're not comfortable having the public there, I really think that we should have everybody. If there's a technical glitch that we don't know about sitting in the room, that somebody's having trouble signing on, and we're not allowing, if we're all on this same forum, we're all very aware of what's going on. If there's a glitch in the system that makes it so that the public can't participate on that day, right, then we would have to cancel the meeting. So we'd all be there, but we'd have to cancel if there was a technical issue.
Well, my understanding is that it would be the same platform, this Zoom platform. So we could have that happen right now. Someone could maybe have difficulty signing in right now to this virtual meeting. So I'm not clear if there's a difference between someone having a trouble signing on now versus a hybrid meeting. But if for some reason our website our Zoom meeting does not allow people to come in, then we would have to delay, or excuse me, the board's decisions would have to be delayed to the next meeting.
Okay.
Does that answer your
Just
question?
clarifying, right? If the public doesn't have access, we can't have a meeting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. That would have been a clearer way to say it. So sorry about that. I just feel like there's more glitches that can happen as we make things more complicated, just because we've experienced that through the whole education system across the country, that the more pieces you add into it, the more complicated it gets, the more glitches there are.
Any further board discussion? Seeing none, Corey, any public comment on this item?
Not that is being indicated, no.
Okay, well, again, this is just for discussion. Director Ringen had pulled this item just to get people thinking, and that's certainly what we did. So on that note, if there's no further discussion on those items, is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Items 1, 2, 3.
I would make that motion.
All right, and it looks like Director Murphy seconded the motion. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, then Melissa, will you please call for the vote?
Okay, Director Balin,
Aye.
Director Boatright,
Aye.
Director Kearns,
Aye.
Director Murphy,
Aye.
Director Ringen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Okay, our next item is our regular business. And Melissa, will you please read the first item?
Okay, item number 4, interview, discuss, and possibly select communication public relation firms for community outreach.
Okay, good morning, President Balin, Vice President Ringen, members of the board. I'll take the first crack at this item. Happy to be bringing this forward. As you all know, the district is faced with an extraordinary opportunity as it moves to acquire senior water rights, and that come along with PG&E facility acquisition, and recognizes that there may be a need to hire a professional consulting services to successfully communicate our efforts with the community. The board narrowed down from a list of 9 communications firms to their top 3 at the October 14th meeting. Those 3 were Lucy & Company, Procio, and Raftelis. Both Lucy & Company and Raftelis accepted our invitation to present their services and be interviewed by the board, and they are here today in a waiting room to join the meeting one at a time in order to do that with you. The 2 firms were given an overview of the acquisition opportunity and asked to give the board a 10-minute presentation about their firms and their services. You also have a summary sheet in your board packet about Lucy & Company and Raftelis, and also for them to be prepared to answer questions from the board. Following the presentations from Lucy and Company and Raftelis, I invite the board to discuss the 2 terms and possibly select a firm to move forward with and receive a proposal for, and then potentially authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with them. So without further ado, unless there's questions from the board, I would like to bring in the representatives from Lucy and Company. Are we good to go? Okay. All right, Corey, can you please bring in to the public meeting Lucy Crocker and Gabby Miller from Lucy and Company, please?
Yes, they're joining right now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, I am seeing Gabby Miller. Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. And Lucy, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you see me?
We can see your photo.
Okay, I am see this thing. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Oh, here we go. Now you can see me. Hello.
Okay. There you are, yes. Okay, well, good morning, Lucy and Gabby from Lucy and Company. We did a brief introduction with the board before you came on. So really, I would like to just hand it over to you for your presentation, and then the board, I'm sure, will have questions for you after the fact. Do you have any kind of a presentation to share on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome to the meeting, and take it away.
Okay, all right. So my name is Lucy Crocker, and I am the president of Lucy and Company. I've had my firm, let me get this in the right view here. There we go. So I've had my firm since 1995, but actually started working on water issues back in 1992. One of the first projects I worked on was for the New Melones Lake Resource Management Plan. And I've done a number of projects up that direction since then, and have enjoyed all that work very well. So quickly, my firm specializes in everything from the very beginning of projects, where we'll start with even planning, environmental, design, and construction, and everything that goes with that for any big infrastructure project that we're working on. Oftentimes there are rate increases that go along with that. Our firm has done over 75 Prop 218 rate increases and know that process very well, and also understand how to work with various types of groups of customers and stakeholders to bring them along as we're working on projects for our clients, to make sure they're fully educated with facts and to garner support for projects that we are looking for them to support. So Gabby, why don't you introduce yourself and what your role is?
Hi, good morning. My name is Gabby Miller. I'm a project manager here at Lucy and Company, and my role is really to ensure high quality work projects that are on schedule and on budget, and that achieve outcomes that our clients need to ensure their systems and their supplies can meet the need for their customers. And I have worked managing projects for SMUD and various drainage rate increases, kind of anything related to water, wastewater, combined sewer system, water quality, water supply, kind of have my hands in water. And we're really excited to be speaking with you this morning.
Thanks, Gabby. So here are some of our services that we provide to our clients. Facilitation, for example, I facilitated over 400 community workshops and public meetings, focus groups, technical advisory committees, community advisory committees, all those kinds of things. I enjoy doing it, and I have a knack for managing public meetings that can go off track because there might be some opposition, to make sure that everybody in the audience has an equal chance to speak and be heard. And we have very unique ways of developing meeting formats depending on the client. Nothing that we do is cookie cutter here. And we do advertising, branding. We've named a number of projects. One of them is regional sanitations. The Sacramento Regional County Sanitation Districts advanced wastewater treatment plant upgrade project, which is $1.7 billion. For example, we named that the EcoWater project, and it really took off from everyone from working down at the plant as soon as we unveiled it, to the elected official, to all the community members, et cetera. We like to do strategic outreach plans, and we always like to start with research. A project that was just completed on October 15th was tested during the big rainstorms a week following, but it was for the McKinley Water Vaults is what we named the project. It's an underground storage facility for the combined sewer system. And I did early research interviewing community members and others in the area and stakeholders who have input on the East Sacramento community, and was able to tell the client before we even started the project that there was a high probability that the project would be sued. So that really helped us develop a plan that was flexible and that had points throughout it where we could stop and revisit where we are and determine if we needed to change our game plan or do something differently. And we do all the other things that firms typically do, you know, websites, infographics, videos, print materials, etc. And please feel free to come in if you are, to ask questions as we go, if you would like to do that. We're totally open to it, so interruptions are fine. I've mentioned a lot of the things about our firm here already, but one thing I want to tell you is that we are focusing on getting the outcomes that you need to achieve the goal of whatever we're helping you with. So whether or not it's putting a big infrastructure project in someone's backyard, literally, that they don't want to have there, to pretty hairy rate increases and those kinds of things. When we write our plans, when we work with our clients, we're always thinking of that end goal. Where are we going and how are we going to get there? And we have a very highly successful team here, anyone from Gabby at the project manager level down to project support, really highly qualified graphic designers and programmers and others. So our strengths are, we know the water, wastewater, energy communities inside and out. I've done significant number of these kinds of projects, and oftentimes the clients ask me to present some of the information other than just facilitating the meetings. And I feel comfortable doing that because I've learned so much technical information on infrastructure, engineering plans, financial plans, rate studies, and the like. And that's what we really enjoy doing. And we do have proven outcomes, like I've said. So there's just a number of other things here that we've worked on in the past. So we saw some of these projects on your website, and we understand how to go about working on projects like these. When we started the regional SAN project, the EcoWater project, the first thing we did was focus groups and a phone email survey. It's just interesting, the focus groups, I had a piece of paper and a pen in front of everyone and asked them to draw for me what they thought happened to the wastewater when it leaves their home. And 2/3 of the people got it wrong. They thought that they were actually basically drinking recycled water. They missed the point of where it's then discharged into the river. And I can tell you that's quite a bit different way of thinking from the first water recycling project I worked on in the 1990s. People would not even consider that. And it was just interesting that we learned that and realized we've got to start at ground zero with this project, explain to people how the process works and so forth, that type of thing. So working with ag customers, raw water customers, we know that you've got a very diverse socially economic customer base, as well as income based and others. And we are very comfortable working in those scenarios and have done that many, many times in the past. So quickly, we do a lot of work for Placer County Water Agency. They're one of our bigger clients, and they're just excellent to work with. So they've done projects like a forest management project, the French Meadows project, and we did a number of things for them to assist them with that. and anything from getting them news segments on PBS, 30-minute news segments, to writing the award entry for Aqua, and they did win the Clare Hill that year. And then we just completed a really pretty cool recreation website. As a requirement of their new FERC license, they need to have a recreation website, and they went far and above what was required in designing that site. And so we've done many, many other things down here. We even wrote an award entry for them this year for the Water Professional of the Year, a joint entry with the city of Sacramento, and they were able to achieve that award as well.
Lucy, we have a one question from Director Murphy.
Hi, Director Murphy.
Hi, it's actually just a request. I'm getting a lot of scratchety noise in the background.
Okay.
I see that there's two TUD.
It's
TV
not coming
water
from our
and-
side, Director Murphy. It is coming from Lucy's side, unfortunately.
Okay.
What is it?
Yeah, there's a lot of.
Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate you telling me that. So San Joaquin County, we've done over 10, mostly Prop 218, but some benefit assessments for them. They are in a very unique position where they have about 120 special districts in the county. So their customer base can be very, very small, and therefore easy for people to walk around a couple days before, the night before, and get enough people to sign a letter, a form letter or something like that, write letters to oppose it. So we're brought in usually after they've failed twice, sometimes when they failed once. And at that point, the rate increases, of course, are much more extensive than they would have been if they had approved them a few years before. But we enjoy working on those kinds of things and understand, you know, it's many times more difficult to work with the smaller agencies where it's easy to oppose things than larger ones that we've done, for example, with the city of Sacramento with almost 140,000 connections. And here's just other work that we've done. We did kind of a cool thing for the city of Sacramento and created an extremely robust water quality website, the first of its kind in the nation. And that was a solution that we developed in because there were several people working at the water treatment plant who were giving out false information to a local news publication and TV station. And there was a lot of misinformation going out that the city was trying to correct. And this was the outcome that we completed for that. And we've just done many, many other things, including stakeholder and elected official engagement. I just completed doing about 20 interviews for Placer County Water Agency with staff and their board to understand their perceptions of the communications activities, what they think could be improved, maybe what they didn't think was necessary, and things that they could do that would keep them more up with the times and keep the customers engaged in as many different ways possible. And this is just a sample schedule. If we were to work on a project for you, the types of things that we would be doing would be the research, developing the plan and any foundational materials, then start launching the community outreach and stakeholder engagement component. And then we always want to be measuring, like, how are we doing? What's the tone of the comments in the community? What are we hearing from other people at public meetings? What's appearing in the newspaper? Those kinds of things before we continue to launch into a new phase, if there were to be a new phase of the project. And of course, it's always important to keep you, the board, updated, as well as the general manager, who I see has been made a permanent position. He's been permanently selected, so we're so happy to see that. And that type of thing. So that's just a very general schedule to look at. And just to wrap up, I'd like to just tell you I've been actively involved in the Aqua Communications Committee for countless years, at least 10, as well as the California Association of Sanitation Agencies, the wastewater organization for our state. the biggest one. And I was on their communications committee for many, many years, and they were actually our client for about 5 years as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to you for questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Lucy.
Hello.
Do any members of the board have any questions?
We have Director Kearns and Director Boatwright.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy. I appreciate you coming on today. Back to your when you were talking about San Joaquin County and the Prop 218s and when they'd failed already a couple of times. And you might have mentioned this and I might have missed it, but I take it you were successful in getting those through and getting those passed and correct?
Yes, all of them but one. The one that had 21 customers did not pass. And as soon as the customer base realized they were getting their water supply from the city of Lodi, and the county had let them know, there was only a few people that attended this meeting, that if they started going to Galt, the city of Lodi, there would be some things that would open up some potential additional costs that they had not been being charged for a while. And so this customer had gone to the city, inquired with them, and the rate increase did not pass. But after that, since she had been inquiring with them and talking to them, actually those additional costs that they needed to be charged were actually retroactively charged, and it didn't make any of the customers happy. And so at that point, the second time around, it did pass. But there was one that we passed right toward the beginning of doing this type of work for them. That was a 400% rate increase over a 5-year period. Wow. And based on community input, the county went back and did a second scenario. So one scenario, they would have a very high increase the first year and lesser ones the next 4 years versus equal rate increases for all 5 years. And the difference there was that if they started with the first scenario with big increase the first year and smaller ones after, they would end up with a bigger reserve fund. And most of these, whether it's water or wastewater agencies, they owe the county money. Their systems have not been improved. They're just being band-aided together. And so it's very important, you hear that term storytelling from people, but it really is telling a story to them, letting them understand what the implications will be if this increase that we're speaking about today with them doesn't pass. And then we work to find people who understand the facts and are able also to talk to their neighbors, and us has been highly successful. So that was an interesting one. We had 52 high-income customers behind a gated fence with big homes, and then 202 other homeowners and customers who a lot of them were on fixed incomes or were low income, but they did agree to do the one that would leave them with a bigger reserve fund at the end of the day. And if it wasn't for the public input, the county would have only gone with the first scenario. And that's what I always like to see on any project is we show that we're listening, we hear you, we understand, and we are trying to do everything we possibly can to make it work for you, not only now with maybe future rate increases, but also water supply, water quality, wastewater treatment, whatever the project is.
All right, that's great. Thank you, Lucy. I appreciate it.
You bet.
I think Director Boatwright was next. Was that?
Yes, correct, unless he doesn't have a comment anymore, then after that would be Director Murphy.
Well, I will pass to Director Murphy. Director Kearns asked my question. So.
All right.
I guess I'm just curious of what you think are the biggest issues that we're facing in this.
I think you've got, first and foremost would be not having your own water rights. I think that is extremely important, as you know very well. impacts of the rim fire, your septic tanks. You're already undergoing several big infrastructure projects and making sure that the public is kept abreast of whether or not you're on budget, on time, on schedule. And I understand that there have been a number of tax increases, for example, that have not passed in your county. And if you were to try to go forward with something in the future, a rate increase for a project, that would make it difficult because we already understand the mindset of some of the voters and people who live there. And we would want to make sure, to me, it's the facts and just the facts, and making sure that we're answering any new questions with factual information. So I think in a nutshell, those would be some of the things. And you've got a very diverse customer base that's spread out as well. I know the majority of them are in Sonora, but you've got them in other areas as well. And that can make it more difficult for many reasons, whether or not it's trying to find locations that work for everyone for public meetings, to notifying people about meetings, that kind of thing. And when I was working on several projects up your way, we were even going around to grocery stores, coffee shops, and posting handbills on the wall, basically like small little posters encouraging people to learn more about the project as well as attend the meetings. So a number of things, I guess, hopefully I didn't name too many things.
Well, the part of that was, I don't think I phrased my question exactly how I meant to, but just what do you think, what are the things that we are up against? Not what are the things that we're trying to do, but what are the things we are most up against in this? What do you see as our biggest hurdles, I guess, is the question.
Okay, your biggest hurdles would be gaining support for, I saw that you have a project with PG&E, gaining support from the public to support that project and be willing to pay for that project. I know that I think I already mentioned some of that. I think that's one of the bigger things that you would be up against, and rate increases, pending upcoming rate increases. It looks like, from what I can see on your website, you're at the end of your rate increase cycle, and you might be needing to start that up again. So, if people have been negatively impacted by the economy more so than they already would be, those kinds of things make it more challenging. And then, making sure that your canals and those kinds of things are able to serve your ag customers and that kind of thing, keeping things running.
Thank you.
You bet.
We have Director Balin with her hand up for a comment, and
Yes,
then Director Ringen.
Thank you, Lucy, and Gabby. Could you, my question are twofold. How has your strategic outreach, well, first of all, could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on your strategic outreach, your early research? I think you touched on some of that, going into the supermarkets, just sort of talking to folks. And then the second part of that is, so elaborate on your strategic outreach, and then how has your ability to do town halls changed with the pandemic? Thank you.
Very good question. And Gabby knows how I'll answer part of the second question that you have. So strategic outreach to me means anything. So we always like to start with research. And in some cases, it might be interviewing key stakeholders. And they'll oftentimes tell us things that they may not share with our client. So typically we do them just one-on-one, and we can do them over the phone. It doesn't have to be in person, but we do have a list that we develop and you approve and give feedback on, as well as the questions that will be asked. We always do a final report and include recommendations for next steps. Other times, or in addition, we do focus groups. And the benefit of focus groups is that interchange that you get between people in the groups. So sometimes it just depends on the project, but sometimes we will have one group that we anticipate will support the project and another group that may not. Other times it might be better to have two groups of both of them in the same group. So that might be with customers, or we can do them with stakeholders as well. And again, it's really interesting to see how people can maybe persuade someone to think differently just amongst themselves. And it also gives me the ability to ask questions that are, deviate a little bit from the questionnaire, but on hearing upon their input, I am able to dig in a little bit further and pose scenarios to them. Of course, email, phone surveys, those kinds of things work very well for clients that have the emails for most of their customers. That's something that we can do also. One thing that we did for San Juan Water District at the beginning of the last drought was a teletown hall, very same as you may have done for some of your campaigns. And it was the day before they needed to start implementing their 36% water cutback. And I was hoping we'd get 100 people because we'd never done one before. And they have about 11,000 customer accounts. And we actually got almost 3,000 to stay on the line. And it was formatted in such a way where people felt heard. They got phone calls, emails, stopping the field crews, telling them that thing that you did was the best thing San Juan ever did. So that, was strategic in the sense that it was actually an early way kind of doing a virtual meeting, but we were just on the phone. But the way that we formatted it is what gave people the perception that they were actually asking live questions to the general manager and the head of conservation, even though they were actually asking the questions to others of us that were there in the room, and then we were putting those in the software. So getting back to the strategic, if we understand, like at the beginning of a project, that something like I mentioned with regional sand, where people didn't even understand how the wastewater treatment process worked, then they wouldn't have understand why the California Sports Fishing Alliance sued regional sand. And that's because the water goes into the river afterwards. It doesn't go back up to their homes for them to drink and bathe in. So and they also did not like the project name. They thought it was too long and too government. And so we were able to develop the Echo Water name, which is bringing water back to the river that's clean and safe. I'm going to skip to a different project, but this will also tell you a different way of being strategic. So we were doing the first big rate increase for the city of Sacramento right when this recession began. And they hadn't had adequate rate increases for over 20 years. And at that point, their infrastructure was crumbling, falling apart. Our messages were your wastewater treatment pipes haven't been improved, or when they will, I'm sorry, let me start over. I used to know it by the back of my hand. Your wastewater pipelines are on track to be replaced once in every 400 years. Your water pipelines are on track to be replaced once in every 280 years. And one of your only 2 water treatment plants has not been upgraded since it was built by horse and buggy. So those are our main messages, and we did a lot of work on this. We named it Your Utilities, Your Voice was the project name. We did get their voice at the beginning through a phone and email survey, pen and paper surveys for people that did not speak English. And we would bring representatives out with us that spoke in their language to present the information and get their feedback. But we did realize there was no way the public was going to be able to get 50% plus one of their 140,000 customers to oppose it. Our hurdle in this case was having the elected officials vote yes once the city brought it to city council and mayor. So what we realized is there was a guy from Eye on Sacramento who keeps his eye on Sacramento, and he has a group that opposes a lot of things that the city does. He kept going to the Utility Rate Advisory Commission meetings and council meetings and stating that he wanted the 10% utility user tax that would go to the general fund to be put back into the rates so that it would lower the rate amount. The director and I, Dave Brent, had the same idea at the same meeting. what if we use that money for a low-income assistance program? Because the council members who were in very low-income areas, we had a feeling were not going to support the rate increase. And so long story short, one of the council members did inquire about that at the next council meeting. And the city attorney explained that that was absolutely possible. And so they made a revision to the rate increase process that if it was passed, that then it would need to include a low income assistance program. And that is something that was highly successful in getting the rate increase passed, as well as getting, they did it on their own the first year doing the low income assistance program outreach and got less than 1,500 customers to apply. And so we were retained, we won and competed to do the work on that. And we got them almost to 10,000 people to participate in just a little bit over a year. And so that was something we figured there's about 20,000 people that would qualify. And luckily it didn't go too much higher than that because they wouldn't have had the funds to have additional people participating past, at least at that point, past about a little bit over 10,000 customers. So those, to me, that strategy, the strategy is looking at the end. What do they need? They need to get this passed. Well, what are all the steps that we need to take to get there? And what can we do that will make it something that's really, in that case, a win-win for everyone, including the low-income customers?
Okay, great. Director Ringen.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to present today to us, Lucy. It's been informative. My question to you is going to be, I know that you and your organization have had a lot of experience here in the foothills and so on. So you're pretty familiar with the demographics and the age group and the income levels and non-income levels and everything else. What will be your firm's method? I mean, I can tell by your presentation that you've spent a fair amount of time doing a little research on Tuolumne Utilities District, especially on the website.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine and good. But my question is what will your firm's method be to get to obtain the details that you're going to need in order to make this all important project that we've been working on now for many years, but definitely for the past 3 years, and we cannot fail.
And I absolutely understand that. It would be a mix of things. And Abby, maybe you can just give me a thumbs up or thumbs down. Do you have the email addresses for most of your customers? Do you think?
Actually, Steve, do you have, yeah, okay. Our finance director is giving me thumbs up. He oversees customer service. Thank you.
We have about 8,000.
Okay.
Yeah, we have 15,000 customers. We have about 8. We always struggle with it, but yeah, our system maintains it.
Okay, great. That's good to know. So I think if you have a very critical project that is, do or die, for other means, I would want to do several different types of on-the-ground research. For us, learning the technical components is not hard because we've done so many of these projects before, and we can bring in things that we've done all different kinds of places. But here, I would want to talk to people who you think would support the project, people who will oppose the project very strongly, and then those people in the middle. Because oftentimes, it's easy, the people who support it, we know we got them. And then sometimes there are people who oppose a project where it's just extremely difficult to get them to change their mind. Those people in the middle are oftentimes the ones that are most critical for us to be talking to and getting input from. So I would think doing interviews, one-on-one interviews, and potentially creating an advisory committee, whether or not it's a technical advisory committee or a community advisory committee. And we would want people on there who are either highly influential community members just on their own, presidents or executive directors from different organizations. And I saw on your website and in other places, you have a number of different organizations that you could bring in. And then we would bring them along, you know, maybe Eric, your district engineer, would be giving presentations about the engineering component if there was one, or if it's a financial component to a project. Oftentimes, I think it can be beneficial to bring in a group from the outside to do maybe the financial planning, or if you're doing a rate increase, because sometimes it gives more credibility if the client is not well respected or people have a level of distrust. Sometimes it can be helpful to bring in a firm that specializes in that. So once we would, and then if we could do an email survey, which it sounds like we can, and we would want to be publicizing that you're doing one and encouraging people to join your email list if they haven't already. Oftentimes by painting the picture in such a way that allows people to understand that they want to be getting information from you. And in this case, you want to get their input, which can be a very strong way to start. I think we would want to do that as well. And there are even ways that, you know, say we did bill insert for you, we could even have a QR code on there for people to just use their phone and it would take them right into the survey. And then we could encourage maybe those who you don't have email addresses for to sign up as well. And then we want to be going early on and getting their input, and then bringing them along through an advisory committee, community meetings, presentations, and those kinds of things. So it would be finding the messages that are the most important and resonate with people the most. And that's what we would use. We're doing that on a drainage rate increase, which is a mail-back ballot increase for the city of Sacramento, and research has been absolutely a key component of that. We want to, you know, be doing the checkpoints as we go. And I saw, for example, that Barbara wrote an op-ed in your local newspaper that we've worked with before in the past. And so those kinds of things, you know, if there was to be another one of those, we might have different messages that we're getting out to the public based upon what we hear from them early on. Did that answer your question? Probably a long answer, Ron?
Yes, it did. It sounds like you've got a lot of bases covered, which could move things forward in a good way. This is going to be almost a lame comment, but I feel that I have to state it. If Lucy and Company comes on board, I would imagine, but I'm going to let you know that the TUD staff, many of them have lived here either all their life or 40 years or more, or so on. Many of them have 20 plus years experience working at Tuolumne Utilities District. And they know what the issues are. And if you had that information right at the very beginning, I believe that you'd be able to ask all the right questions and know where you were going to have to design your system. And I'm not trying to tell you your job, because you're the expert and I don't know anything, but I'm hoping that you would be able to give our board, and especially our staff, the game plan in order to make this thing move forward. So I'll leave it at that.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, because one thing I didn't say is doing internal interviews. So we would want to be talking to people from customer service, to people who are out in the field, or even conservation staff. Those are the people I've found in the past that are the first line of defense with the customer. And so they have a unique perspective. And then definitely making sure that everyone, from you down to, a field service worker and everyone in between, clearly understands what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what the messages are. Even at PCWA, some of the field service staff feels like they don't know the answers to things, but then it's hard to get them to have the time or ability to be reading emails that go out about projects. And so we've come up with a different way of informing them about the information, and making sure that they are also included and aware. But you're right, they are going to be your spokespeople in many regards. And that's extremely helpful that they've been there as long as they have, and their community members. One of the more hostile meetings I did, I was actually a stakeholder too. It was after a shooting in Sacramento. And it was very helpful for me to tell the participants, I am you. I also have a business and a work out of a building that is thrashed during second Saturdays, that gets graffiti when people are out there and those kind of things. So it was very helpful in getting them to understand I am you. Also, I just wanted to state something. I'm highly involved in everything on our projects. We keep our project load pretty small enough where I can be involved in every aspect of things, especially on a project like this. Some projects, Gabby is more on her own at times, but in this case, I would be very involved. So I would make presentations to the board, or I would be doing the questions, asking stakeholders questions and those kinds of things, because I have the most experience and the most ideas, and I want to make sure that my touch is on every single thing that we work on for our clients.
Hey, thank you.
Yes.
We have Director Murphy with her hand up. Oh, no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Director Murphy.
Yeah, so just another question, which is, do you feel that there is value to educating people on the issue prior to asking them to think about it and give their opinion?
So that's a very good question. We almost never do that because we like to just see what they know when we start. However, and I know, a lot of your employees and customers are already aware of your issues of concern, as well as the things that you're doing to solve them, or that you need to do to solve them. But I've found that if they're reading up on the information or boning up on the facts, then we don't get the same type of response as we might get if we're just asking them what they know from the start. Focus groups, for example, and even in the stakeholder interviews, however, if we start with some questions that are open-ended at the beginning, we may then pose a scenario in the focus group. So we've heard, your opening feedback. Now we want to pose a scenario, and we would describe the situation, and then have set questions that we want to ask, and go from there. So we would kind of, in that way, we're educating them as we go. Sometimes we might give them, half a page description of the project. This is what I like to do in focus groups. And they all highlight things they don't understand, or they put in words that they think would be better. And I might, in a focus group, just have them all do that quietly on their own. And then when they're all done, then we go around the room and we talk about it, and we get the input, and we see what each person thought about it. And by doing these exercises, like when I had people draw what happens to wastewater when it leaves their home, it really shows us from the ground zero where they are in their understanding and education level, and bringing, and then we can introduce those scenarios, like I said. But that's something that I've done a number of times, things like that, and it can be extremely helpful. And as like I said, nothing will be cookie cutter if we're retained to work with you. We'll draw on our experience and kind of best practices, and generally the flow of how we want to go from research to project completion. But in the middle, all of it will be customized to you, your customer base, your needs as an agency, and direction from the board and management.
Thank you.
Okay, those are all really great questions. Thank you to the board. I think at this point, and I'm not seeing any other hands, so at this point,
if I could,
oh,
real quick, Abby, I'll just jump in. I didn't raise
Yeah.
my hand, I apologize, but I wanted to just say hi to Lucy and to
Hi,
Gabby, and
Lucy.
thank you very much for presenting today. And my comments are along the lines of Director Ringen's, and no, they weren't lame. We have a very, very unique story that we cannot wait to tell. When you hear our story collectively from all of us, you'll find it to be as unique as you'll ever hear. I know this because in all of my time here, going to different conventions and seminars and training sessions, and I get a chance to tell our story, it's like everybody is just mystified at exactly how we go about doing our day-to-day businesses. Because anyway, I just know that if you get an opportunity to work with us, you're going to find our story very unique and a good challenge. And like I said, I'm excited to get this story out. So anyway, thank you for coming.
Oh, you bet. And I did want to say just a final thing, and I could send them over to Abby, but when we were doing that McKinley Water Vault project, we knew would be sued before the city even worked on it, and it was sued, but the judge allowed them to start construction anyway when they went back on an appeal. But we did, people kept saying that they didn't want to have, the wastewater stored under the biggest park in Sacramento, which is where we put it. And so our response would be, well, would you prefer to still have it flowing, down the streets and into your homes and basements and everything? So in those cases, we developed two things to assist people in understanding at a basic level. We use these things called whiteboard videos, and they kind of draw out what's happening, and you have a narrator narrating it. And you can do creative things like we showed the vault asleep, because it's only going to be used on average 3 days once every 10 years. So we wanted to show it's not something that's going to be constantly storing wastewater or not storing wastewater and those kind of things. And just by doing them, we were able to use them at public meetings and in all of our digital communications, as well as promote them in print information as well. So that's just another way of getting a story out quickly and simply and get the major facts out.
awesome. Thank you, Lucy. President Balin, did you have any comments?
No, just to thank you, Lucy, again for a very comprehensive overview of your full service, firm in communications. I really learned a lot. I really appreciate your time, and I thank you. And I don't know if we open this up for public comment at this time or not. I need maybe some guidance here. Is there any questions from the public, or is that not appropriate, Abby?
Well, I think it would be okay to wait till the end of the item, but if we have any public comment right now, I don't see any harm in that.
Okay. Corey, is there any comments from the public?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure that the public is included here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Lucy and Gabby, for being here. We really appreciate your time, and you are welcome. I believe that Corey can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you can just leave the meeting after this, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you so much. And we would really enjoy working for you, and hearing that you've got a big challenge makes us want to work for you even more.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I have a request for a 5-minute break between the presenters.
Oh, sure. We'll queue them up, and we'll meet back at, let's see, I'm seeing 10:34, so at 10:40.
Is that okay? Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, good morning, Mary.
Hi there, how are you?
Good morning, I'm well. Good morning, Samantha.
Good morning.
And I see Melissa is connecting to audio right now. We are on a 5-minute break.
Okay.
So just thought we'd go ahead and allow you to come in the room so you're ready to go, but we are going to resume at 10:40, in which I will introduce you.
Sounds good. Sounds great.
Okay. Did you hear me there, Melissa? Okay, maybe she stepped away. You are on mute, Melissa, if you are trying to talk.
Says she can't get unmuted.
Okay, let's see.
I just sent her a request to unmute.
Oh, thank you, Corey.
Mhm.
She's gonna go out and come back in. Maybe it'll do its thing.
Okay.
She still can't unmute. Sorry.
Corey, are you there?
Yeah, unfortunately, that's not anything I have control on my side. I did ask her to unmute, but it seems like it might be something on her end, either microphone or different workstation or something.
Okay. Here's what we'll do. And I was just reading her, she was texting us. I think I'll go ahead and present for us. And let me just send her a text to see if, is there a, Abby, do you know if there's a dial-in option for her by phone?
There is.
There is, and it is on the agenda. Did you guys see the agenda? But I can email it to you right now, just as a convenience here.
Okay, she's going to go ahead and call in.
Okay, and I'm emailing you that information right now.
And I think she has it. And Mary, if y'all want, we can start and Mary can share her screen.
Yeah. Okay, we have about 1 minute.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, thank you. We're just going to wait about 1 more minute for all the board members to come back.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being patient today.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, and there's my video.
Hey.
Right on time. Clicking, guys. So sorry about that. All right, we're here.
No problem. And we are just waiting, I believe, for 2 board members to come back from our little short break, and then I'll introduce you guys and we'll get started. Thank you so much for your patience this morning.
No worries. Thank you.
We were ready to dive in and pinch hit for you, Melissa.
No idea. Technology. It's just using Zoom earlier today, so who knows? And we're going to have Mary share screen, so you just let us know when you're ready to do that.
Okay, will do. Let's see. Director Murphy, are you still with us? Are you back? Okay, it is 10:41. President Balin, would you like me to move forward, or would you want to wait another minute or two?
Let's just give it another minute if we can and see Director Murphy puts her screen on. Well, I think we should go ahead. It's 10:42.
Okay. Okay, excellent. So I'll just do a quick introduction. So here we have Melissa Elliott, Samantha Villegas, and Mary Zambrano. Did I say that correct? Both of you?
You did, yes. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. From Raftelis. And they are here to present to the board, and they have been also prepped with some information about the opportunity in front of the district with PG&E, senior water rights, and have been asked to provide a 10-minute presentation and then also be prepared to answer questions from your board. What you would feel comfortable, to see if you would feel comfortable working with them, and see what other services they may have to offer. So with that, I will turn it over to, President Balin?
Yes, before we turn it over or during the presentation, could you, there's Director Murphy. I was just going to ask you to call Director Murphy, but we're all here. Okay, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, Melissa, would you like to take it away?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Mary, for sharing that. If you can put it into presentation mode, that'd be great. Awesome. Thank you. Well, it's really nice to see you all again, and thank you for inviting us today. We have a really brief presentation, 10 minutes, to introduce our team to you, and then we're going to look forward to taking some of your questions. So first up, let me introduce Raftelis. We've been around for nearly 30 years, and our core business is really water and wastewater utilities. We have offices across the country, including California, and we are currently working with you on some financial consulting work. So you're a little bit familiar with that arm of our business. But the team I've assembled today and brought to you is our strategic communications practice. You'll see Matt Wittern's on the slide here. He wasn't able to join us, but I do have Sam and Mary to do a quick introduction. I'll start first and then pass it on, and then we'll run through this presentation pretty quickly. So I've been working with water and wastewater utilities for more than 20 years, and my entire professional career is focused on helping utilities share the value of the service they provide. And I'm a vice president at Raftelis, and I would serve as the project director for you. So prior to consulting, I worked for 2 utilities for about 2 decades as a director of communications. So I'm quite familiar with the inner workings of utilities of all sizes, and now I consult. So I'm also the former president of the American Waterworks Association, which is the world's largest professional association focused on water and utilities. So the takeaway for me is that I've dedicated my career to helping utilities explain the value of the service that they provide. Sam, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. And good morning, everybody. Thanks for having us here. I'm Samantha Villegas. I'm the director of the team Strategic Communication Services at Raftelis. And very similar to Melissa, I bring over 20 years of experience right there at the intersection of communications and outreach and really public works. I started off in solid waste and recycling communication, made my way into water and wastewater, and now stormwater, and I do a little bit of roads as well. And a couple things to know about me. I'm accredited by the Public Relations Society of America. I have certificates, as the whole team does, in public participation. And this is really our sweet spot and our passion. And my experience runs the gamut from crisis and reputation management to even branding and acquisitions. Like Melissa, I too have spent over 10 years inside of utilities, both a public utility and an investor-owned utility. So have sat in your shoes and seen things from the inside. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mary. Mary, you are muted.
So maybe you could just introduce Mary. It doesn't sound like her. She's having the
there she
same problem I had, maybe.
I'm back real quick, I think. So I'm Mary Zambrano, Strategic Communications Consultant. I'm new to the team, but coming in with over 13 years experience in public relations, marketing, and engagement coordination for local and the utility sector, excuse me. I've served in capacities of media spokesperson, graphic designer, videographer, social media manager, and crisis communications, strategic initiatives, and program rollout. So I'm really excited at the opportunity to work with you all.
Thanks, Mary. Well, we know the district has a very unique opportunity in front of you, and it's a super exciting opportunity as well. I imagine for those that know about that opportunity, it's feeling exciting and anxious as well as you roll this out, but it's also a challenging communication position that you're in too. So you must build understanding about the value of this opportunity, that it's a once in a lifetime chance to secure local control over your water sources. In fact, to secure water sources, right? It's kind of amazing that you've been able to go on this long without them. It's kind of shocking, in fact, the position that you're in and the opportunity that is in front of you. But there's some nitty-gritty details that you are being worked on, and some of those details really can't be shared. So you're in a really unique, interesting, and challenging position. And when you think about communications, you're having to communicate to your customers through some filters. I mean, we've got the pandemic that is still kind of hanging on. Maybe some of your customers have been experiencing some rate fatigue. The rising cost of living is a concern for some folks. We know you have a diverse community there as well. And frankly, because every time you turn that faucet on, the water comes on, there's probably not a lot of thought going on in the public about where that water actually comes from and the journey it takes to get there and all the work that the district does to have happen. There's also a ton of marketing messages going on, and your customers come from all kinds of backgrounds. So here's where we think that we can help you. You know, we know that you have begun a communications campaign, and you have a website out, and you've got the beginnings of a messaging platform, and all that was done just before the pandemic. I know you were looking forward to doing more outreach, and then the pandemic hit, and it's kind of a little bit stalled, right? And it's time to refresh that and get that out into the public. So we think that's a good foundation to work from. But you need to do a lot more than just a one-way communication. It really is two-way. You're going to be hearing from those customers, and you need to know what to do about that. So we'd like to, we've expressed to you that we're communication leaders. We really do work full-time with water utilities. It's a passion for us. We almost always are working on projects just like this, where you have to explain the value of service, and you're going to have a cost differentiator that comes in there. And we work a lot with when costs are going up for customers, and we need to explain why to get those customers to come along with us on their understanding journey. We do bring national experience. So we work outside the state of California. California is one of our larger states as far as the work that we do, but we can bring experience from all over the country from many of the smaller utilities that we work with about what's worked for them and share that with you. As for our California experience, in your board packet, you'll have seen a one-page description that we were asked to submit. And I included some of the California work that I thought was most relevant. So our work with Nevada Irrigation District was on developing a public engagement plan for a long-term plan for water resources for a community that's really rapidly changing. Our work for the Sacramento Area Collaborative Group was with 7 utilities, from really big to really small, that were needing to come together on how they could share water resources. And in some cases, they were looking at merging some of their utilities as well and doing some shared services. So a lot of challenging communication issues there. And then our work with Amador was for a rate study, and that would significantly increase their customers' rates to pay for infrastructure needs there. We've worked through dozens and dozens of Proposition 218 processes. That is a really familiar thing for us, and we think we have a good way of doing that with our clients. We also have depth of resources. So the folks that you're seeing on the screen today are just part of our team. We have a 7-member graphic design and marketing team that works to make any materials, whether digital or print, really shine and speak directly to the customer in words that they understand in a simple, understandable way. We have a facilitator that works great with public engagement efforts like town halls or even a video town hall. She's just located just north of San Francisco. You'll have access to a 4-member communication team that includes really senior experience. So although we haven't seen a scope of work from you, we're anticipating building that together with you if we're selected. This is our typical approach. We would adapt that based upon your needs. But first of all, we would like to evaluate that Our Water, Our Future campaign that you've already begun. I mean, you've spent some time and effort doing that. It has some really good elements. And so how can we use that and expand on it? So we'd be scanning the environment, seeing what's been happening since that was launched, taking a look at your messages, really refining those, honing those, taking a look at the components that were already done and then adding to them, and really taking a deep dive, probably working with Lisa mostly on your media work that you do. Part of that would be some in-depth conversations. We really like to get a sense of what the community's thinking. And we would start with talking with your board members one-on-one about what they're thinking they want from a campaign. I know this is a highly engaged board, you're highly engaged in the community, and you can represent that. We'd also like to select a handful of those that are outside the board that are in the community, kind of get a sense of what are people thinking about this? What are our challenges? What are our risks as we communicate, to really get a sense of what your customers might think? Then we would go about building that plan that of course has goals and objectives, strategies and tactics, but messages are really important. And we're going to draw a lot of that from that in-depth conversation piece. And there's an implementation plan, right? Because just building a plan is great, but you got to actually do it. And part of that is measurement. We always like to have very specific metrics within our plan so that when we're checking in with our client, we know we're hitting the mark on that. We know we're doing a good job. And for implementation, we would see this as locally led. You have a general manager that's been with you several decades, that's well known in the community. You have Lisa on staff, and you have us behind you supporting and building the strategy. But generally speaking, when we work with clients, we don't see the communication consultant as the ones sharing the message directly with customers. Especially in smaller communities, they want to hear from the people they know. That's your board, that's your GM, that's your communication specialist. And there might be some others that we can pull in as well. We'll create those materials that connect with your customers, do the tactics that aligned with your stakeholders, and then we'll be doing some frequent check-ins as well. So we're often asked in these type of interviews, well, how do you know it works? We're kind of new at this, or we haven't done something this large. This is a really big opportunity for you. So some of the things that we've seen that work and I would anticipate would be part of your plan. One is I feel like a coalition, bringing people together that are outside your board, that represent the community, that are well respected in your community, that you can ask for specific endorsements of this effort, could be really, really powerful, so that it's not just the district speaking, it's the community speaking as a whole, that this is what we need to do to build the foundation for our community. The other thing is targeting that middle group. You're always going to have detractors in any community, and it's really easy to think about, I just want to get those folks to like this and be so excited about this because it's such a great opportunity for us. And unfortunately, changing those minds like that is one of the most difficult communication tactics. You can do it, but it takes a heck of a long time, and you may not have that time in front of you. A better way to do this is to really target that middle group that probably hasn't given this a ton of thought. They're probably neutral. Maybe they've heard a few things. That's who you want to target with some really consistent messaging to bring them along on your support effort. Multi-layered communication channels can help with that. Videos, social media, digital, getting out in front. We're in a pandemic age. If you can do some in-person meetings coming up soon, we're all hoping to get back to some of that. I think that is a really nice thing. And prioritizing images and video. We've included some of the work from our graphic design team that we work with here, so you can see the quality that we can provide. And last but not least, we want to make sure you know that we're strong project managers as well. We would anticipate being with you on site to do a project kickoff meeting to get to know each other really well. And then we would be doing some milestone presentations. I know your board is really active there at the district and engaged and will want to hear how this is going. It's important to you. So probably some of those presentations would be with the board in addition to staff, and then weekly or bi-weekly check-ins with staff to make sure we're hitting those milestones, and some monthly reviews as well. And with that, I think we're ready for some Q&A. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melissa and team. Oh, I'm hearing some echo back there. Do any board members have any questions? All right, Director Murphy, Director Kearns, then Director Boatwright.
Thank you. That was a really great presentation and very thorough. And I'm just trying to ask the same questions to both parties. So, but you covered a lot of it in your presentation. So thank you for that. And so I'm guessing this will be quick. But the first question that I have is what do you see as the biggest issues we are facing for Tuolumne County with regards to this acquisition?
Oh yeah, let me start on that. And then Sam, if you want to dive in, feel free. I think it is challenging that you can't talk about everything right now. And you've got a potential for some cost increases in the future that you can't really talk about either in detail. And with trust issues in the public sector, I think that can be a challenge to really get out there and explain that. I do think you can meet that challenge though. And it's going to require a lot of consistent, really strategic communication that's really layered. And that's where I would head. Sam, do you have anything to add to that?
Just the evergreen challenge that most utilities have about, and you mentioned this, Melissa, the real lack of awareness of all the work that goes into that in delivering water services, and having to really build that and understanding and a value for it so that when it comes time to talk about cost, people are primed and ready for that.
Thank you. And so is it okay if I ask the second question now?
Sure.
Okay. So the second question was, do you feel that there's value in educating people? And you sort of just answered that. Do you feel that there's value in educating people on the issue prior to asking them what they think about it or having them really give their opinions?
Yes, and I would educate not just on the acquisition piece, but what is it that you're doing for the community, the value of the services that you're providing, really stepping that up. And I took a look at some of the things that are happening right now. There's a lot going on at the district. It's not just this. I mean, you have a lot of wastewater activity happening. There's a lot that's touching your customers, and kind of stepping up on that communication platform a bit. You have some good things out there. I would say you have a good foundation, but it's just kind of enhancing and pulling in a contractor to help you do that can really make the difference, I think.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Director Kearns.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. I appreciate it. And yeah, great presentation. Director Murphy did cover one of my questions, but I do have another one. You mentioned, what is my note here? Bringing in members of the community, and I think that's awesome. What do you think has the most punch for getting our message across? Is it other elected officials? Is it community leaders? Is it just general public? All of the above? What I know I have my thoughts. I'm just curious what you have to say.
I think it's a mix, and I think we would pull that out through those one-on-one conversations we do at the very beginning to get to know who is influential in your community. Different people have different opinions of that. Some utilities go so far as to have an advisory committee that helps, and you could set that up as a more formal thing. What we're talking here is kind of a little less formal than that. Advisory committees can have a lot of rules, especially with public meetings and things like that in your state. So pulling a coalition together, asking people to sign on to endorse this, asking people who, I'm thinking businesses, small business owners, I'm thinking school district leaders, I'm thinking, yes, some elected officials. I think you have to be really careful who you ask in those cases and think through it, because that comes with some baggage sometimes. Definitely all of you, your board and your GM, know people in the community that you can pull in and ask, and building kind of the case to them, actually kind of giving them a peek behind the door a little bit about how you would communicate this and getting their input on that communication. I think that can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's imperative that we get people to buy in from all aspects of all the different political corners here, and so that we get everybody on our team. We have to. That's what we have to have, and I'm glad you feel that way. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Director Boatwright.
Good morning. Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to hear about some of your successes and challenges with the Proposition 218 process.
Oh, you bet. Well, we haven't had a non-success on Proposition 218, so that's good to know. And of course, you all know, because you've done Proposition 218s before, you always get a few folks that want to submit that just because there are folks that say no to everything. But let me give you a couple of specific examples. So we just worked with Marin Municipal Water District on their Proposition 218 case, which was passed successfully as well with their communications work. We've also done Montecito Water District. They both had a Proposition 218, and then they also had a second one to create a groundwater district. And we did a lot of communication in a pandemic for them. They actually started in person and then had to shut everything down and do everything virtually for them. So we did virtual open houses, virtual public meetings well in advance of doing any kind of public hearing. So our recommendation to clients generally is that you want to get a ton of communication out there. Don't just rely on that notice that's going out to tell people about it and wait for people to show up at a hearing. If we're in a position where we can do in-person meetings, which we all are hoping to get back to, those meetings, we often will do an open house, maybe a week or so in advance of that public hearing, so people can come and have one-on-one conversations. So it's not we try not to do these presentations where people can have a microphone and then they give you their 3 minutes, right? So we're creating stations to explain, maybe it's on metering, maybe it's on customer billing. It's also about your rate structure. It's about your water resources. We really look at the whole Proposition 218, not about just rates, because rates are really just one part of your operation. It's more about the water quality, how people are experiencing your service, the people that run your organization, getting those staff members out in person so that they can work with your customers on a one-on-one basis and answer their question. We really feel like that builds a lot of trust before that hearing happens.
All right, thank you.
Does any other board member have another question or a first question? President Balin.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you, Melissa, and your team here. Very thorough presentation, and I appreciate you the amount of homework that you did in your preparation for this. So I think you covered just about everything that I would have asked. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Don, do you have anything to add?
Sure, I'll just chime in real quick, but thank you all for being here and presenting. I said this before, we have such a unique story, and it's deeper than we've talked about here. And so I cannot wait to get this board and our staff together to help craft this message and get it out to our public. So anyway, thanks for coming. Good presentation.
You're very welcome. And we wish you the best of luck. We also agree that you have an exciting story to tell. And I think if you spend some time strategically doing that, you can win over the hearts and minds of your customers.
Thank you.
That's great. Okay, well, without seeing any other questions, Melissa and Sam and Mary, thank you so much again for your time this morning. We really appreciate the conversation and the presentation, and we will be in touch with you soon.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, well, great presentations, great discussion and questions from the board. At this point, I think on this agenda item, I would like really just to invite the board to have a discussion without the firms present, just amongst yourself on maybe, what you felt about the two firms. And if you have any other questions for me or Lisa Westbrook, who has also been working on this project and coordinating with those firms. So I'll open it up to the board for discussion. President Balin.
Yes, I would be interested in, for both of them were very, very, very good. I would be interested in, now that we've heard their presentations about their services, to have a scope of work with a price tag on it, just so we can compare. That just would be the a step for me to be able to see what the value is. Each one gave a very thorough presentation. Bartel clearly had a lot of water experience, as did Lucy and Company. So at any rate, that's all I wanted to say, is that both of them were good, and it would be very interesting to see what they would be doing and how much that would cost. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, so you're interested in receiving proposals from the two firms. Is that what I'm hearing? I want to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, President Balin, that at least obviously we'll have more board discussion, but is that to receive proposals for what they feel would be prudent for this project for the district?
Right. I don't want to, let's see, I wouldn't want to limit their scope of work for them. The task is really clear, to be able to do a, combination of outreach, a variety of tools. All of them had incredible toolkits that they could use, and that you could tell that they were thinking in terms of what they would be doing in our situation. But I think it would be kind of nice to know if they were in the same ballpark. And I'll defer to the rest of the directors here if we're not at that step, or if there's a decision to clearly go with one over the other, then I'll just see. But right now I'm just throwing that out as, yes, it would be good to see what their proposal and how much it would cost.
Okay, thank you. Director Murphy was next, and then Director Kearns.
Yeah, I'm going to go off that and then offer the comment that I was originally going to say, which is, or maybe I'll do it in the reverse. But I think I'd also, on that, like to see a minimally and a maximally kind of thing of the, because within this, just kind of what they think is the minimum that we need to do, and what the cost on that would be, and what a full-blown cost could be on that, just as far as cost structure, because that would be interesting to know of just what how big we're going on this. With my 2 cents on this, the presentations were very different. These are very different companies from what I gather from the presentation. And I understand that Bartel has a lot more experience with us and knows our backstory more, because we've been involved with them on stuff. But I did feel that they were a much better match for us, and I don't know if that's because they already knew the backstory or not. But at this point, the advantage of that, I would imagine, also to catch a new group up to speed we'd be paying for that time. And with Bartel, we've already paid for that time in a different way, with Melissa being already involved in this project. The other thing that I really noticed as a big difference, although Lucy and Company kept saying they don't offer a cookie cutter thing, their process is very is a standard process that the federal government goes through on the Tuolumne River Plan, the Merced River Plan, that, all of these different big plans. Their process is that process on contentious issues. I felt that the process that Raftelis was talking about was more community-centered and more focused on I'm not sure exactly how to categorize the essence of it, but just that it felt more in touch with our community. And again, I understand that they have more experience with our community and with our project, but I think that that is a benefit to us. So that's my 2 cents on it. And so on that, I would feel fine to make the decision of who we were going for, and then ask them to kind of give us the menu of ideally how they would like to see things going, maybe the ideal scenario, and then a minimally scenario. And then if things start going the wrong way, what does that look like as far as, because that of course pumps everything up. But I really felt like they were interested in using what already has been done, and Lisa Westbrook has put a lot of effort into community outreach through the website and things like that. And I think that they understand that and understand a little bit more where we're at and a little bit more about the community. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I'd just like to say I was impressed with both of them. I think we have a couple of winners here. Either way we decide to go. Lisa made some great comments there. Raftelis does have an inside knowledge of us already, so certainly that's something to think about. I'm with Barbara on keep using first names. I apologize. I'm with Director Balin to get the prices and see what where that comes out, because that's certainly something we need to be watching over. And but again, I think they're both very professional, very experienced in what we're trying to accomplish here. And at this point, I'd really like to see what their cost is going to be. That's my 2 cents.
Go ahead, President Balin.
Yes, if other directors offer comments, that would be great. This is a real important decision, and Abby, staff, I just want to open it up. I believe that because, and Don as well, Steve, you'll be working with these folks also. I think either one is exceptional. They both had flexibility. They had a range of tools to use, and an ability to read their community, read the audience. So at any rate, I would love to also hear from staff as well.
I'll go first real quick. I definitely would lean on Lisa Westbrook and Abby for their opinion and their expertise. This is their field. But for me, I think my comments are a little in line with Director Murphy. I thought for certain reason, I think they did a little bit better job. Perhaps they were a little more prepared just because of the experience. For a bit of a sense of urgency, if we could bring somebody on board, the sooner the better. But again, I'm a team player. I'll go with whatever the board and the rest of the staff decide. If you want to get a proposal from both, fine. Otherwise, if you want to get a proposal from one, I'm good. I think both can do the job. Thank you.
Lisa, go ahead, Lisa Westbrook?
I know mostly about Lucian Crocker from my experience with Aqua, and she has a great reputation. And of course, she's been working with water agencies for many, many years. But Raftelis, I think, did an excellent job with their homework and doing a lot of research on the back end. And as Director Murphy said, they do know a little bit more of the insight of what we're already experiencing. I did want to kind of mention to the board, if we're going to ask for proposals, we really need to think about what we want to ask for. I know that this was focused on the PG&E acquisition, but if we also want to tie that in with the Prop 218, that's kind of a sidestep of the whole process. We need to make clear that when we ask for the proposals, exactly what we're kind of expecting to receive. I just want to throw that out there.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I'll just chime in as usual. This is meant to be just my personal observations. It clearly is the board's decision. This is a monumental event, but a couple observations I'll make is, first of all, as Lisa just mentioned, I want everybody to try and keep separate the 218 from that. We've already been discussing with the financial Bartel for a financial plan. And part of that financial plan involves the 218. Now, obviously, there's a huge PR factor to the 218, but they really are kind of two different animals. And we'll be talking more about that tomorrow, I'm sure, in the other meeting. But I think Director Murphy pointed out from my listening to it, they clearly are two very, very different firms and approaches. I don't personally have a lot of background with public relations and that, but we're all members of this community, and you could hear there was a very distinct difference between the two. I think both of them appeared to be knowledgeable and professional and had some real good success stories on there. But again, I felt there were very distinctions between who I thought would be a better fit for our community and for what they've done so far. I'm not so sure about the inside knowledge. I think Bartel does have some of that from the financial and Melissa, but Melissa's involvement has been very limited to what's been done. I think they did their homework maybe a little bit better as far as that, but looking into what we're doing and knowing versus just another project. This isn't just another project. This is very unique in there. I think this coming up with a scope of services and a request for proposal is going to be very, very difficult. I mean, you could have ginormous ranges unless you have, how many town halls, how many emails, how many videos, all that sort of thing. I don't know what you're going to get from the two of those. I think to me, it comes down to the different approaches and what we want to get out of this and establishing a relationship. Much like we've done with some other things as far as investment advisors, actuarial firms, everything else. I almost feel like this is probably more important. Who do we want to establish a relationship with, and who's going to be able to help us long haul? I think it's going to ultimately be the general manager and the staff and the board working with this individual more than just a one and done. Hey, they're going to do it for $50,000. That's it. I've talked to other agencies where some of these jobs started at $30,000. They ended up being $400,000, and they swear up and down it was worth every bit of the money. So I think it would be very difficult right now to try and get, a comparable list scope of services and dollar amounts. But again, that's just my sharing for the board's benefit.
I'll chime in right now. I don't see anyone's hand up. Yeah, I agree with you, Steve, that getting a proposal for the exact same scope of work and the exact same methodology and all of those things, I don't believe will happen, but that may be part of the consideration for the board. You may see a proposal from one that includes more community engagement than the other, or some other method of communication and interviews with board members and interviews with stakeholders that resonates with you more than one or the other. Part of our discussions with bringing in a communications firm has been the difficulty in really drilling down into a specific scope of work as to not also foreclose on any additional ideas from these professional communication firms that they believe are really working with other utilities in California or others that they have worked with. So we don't want to necessarily box them into a specific scope of work. It could be a general one, but those are some of the things I've heard from the board and in asking for a proposal. This could be a very much more organic process than maybe hiring someone for one of the things that Steve Sheffield mentioned, like auditing services or something. This is, there's a lot of, it's very nuanced, and so it has to feel personal to the board and ultimately to our ratepayers. So it's not very cut and dry, but those are some of the concerns and things I've heard from the board over the last couple of months about this topic. Go ahead, President Balin.
Yeah, and I did not mean to cut you short at all, because you made really good points. So backing up to both of them, really, really capable. And Steve saying, yes, it's all about a relationship, and it's a relationship, especially with staff, Lisa Westbrook, General Manager, and Steve. And I agree with you, Steve. Raftelis had sort of some, we didn't really ever know of them before Ed had recommended them, and then we hired them, and they are, they are priced accordingly. So to me, price is an issue, because I do believe, and I don't know what the folks would charge. And again, maybe money is no option, but I think some of our Raftelis meetings were running, what, $650 an hour, something like that. So that's why I think I brought cost in. Lucy's making sure that it's she's in quality control mode, as did Melissa as well. And here's just where I am. I think it's really almost probably more important, since I think the board feels that both of these two entities are well qualified, that staff, I'm not passing the buck, although, it just sounds like I am, that these are the ones you guys are going to be working with daily. And we're going to be basing our interview on these levels of polished interviews or polished presentations, let's say. But I do think that I really do, again, want staff to really have an equal determination in who of these two they feel they can work with. Because this is a long-term relationship. This is going to be maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years long. So that's why I would almost like staff, if they know from us that both of these would be good, that you make the selection. I've never said that before, but I'm saying that.
Director Murphy.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that I do not think these are equal firms, and I do feel that with these, they're very different presentations. They seem to be very different approaches to me. And that I think the Raftelis's presentation focused on a different way of doing things than Lucy and Company's did. So I think they're very different, and I think we'll end up with really different products. And I feel that the product that Raftelis is speaking to fits our community better. So I just wanted to voice that this board member does not feel that either one that we go with. I see a lot of problems with going down the classic road of because I asked the same questions to both entities, and I really wanted to hear what they thought about each of those. And I think that our community will do better with some education before people want to know about our system before we ask them what they think about it. And I think that was a big difference between the two presentations that Lucy and Company said specifically that no, education first, no. And Raftellus said education first, yes. So I think that for me is an important distinction, and I think it will. What I have seen with these processes of starting with focus groups first, you can end up with a whole lot more issues than you started with people talking before they really know what they're talking, before they have the information that they would like to have, before they are asked to make it, like asked to voice their opinion. And I think that the strategies are quite different with the two companies. And so I do not feel like they are equal matches to the community. I feel that Raftellus is more matched to our current position. Not to say that one company is better than the other in general, just that I think that the match of Raftellus to our situation feels good to me, and I didn't feel that same match with Lucy and Company. So I just want to be clear that that's this board member's opinion.
Director Boatwright.
Yeah, a couple of concerns. I almost feel like I'm working with a cart. I don't know how to bolt the wheels under, kind of thing, and asking for the proposals from the two different companies. And certainly that brings into account a wide range of financial responsibility to, our group, and certainly don't want to write a blank check that, somewhere between $30,000 and $400,000. Is there some way to have the two companies, present in their proposals exactly the extent that they would anticipate number of hours being put into it, or number of techniques that they would use? Certainly both companies, and I hear you, Director Murphy, on the approach factor, is having people talk about something that they don't know enough about to have an education behind before they're talking about it and already develop an opinion. Definitely two different approaches. But anyway, those are just my comments.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, I'll just clarify a couple things there too, because what I'm hearing from the board is, you're interested. I'll just say for me personally, what they presented, what I've heard, my experience with Raftellus, I would tend to select Raftellus based on today. Obviously, we need some kind of an agreement to give us range of cost. This is very typical to what we've done with other consultants and where we go with this. We all know we have a budget. I think that's something Dawn and Lisa could certainly address here. I also think it's important too that I didn't hear addressed from Lucy in there. At one point, she referred to an outside financial person to do the 218. And again, we've already kind of got that going. And so I think there is some cost benefit, and also just the timing and how this is going to dovetail between us doing the 218 and doing that. So, I mean, if we're really looking at these two, that's where I would tend to go. And that's what I think Director Balin was asking me to do. But by no means, I mean, whatever the board decides, I'll support and do. And I think we could work with both of them. But again, there was a very different approach. And I just felt that Raftellus' approach was more on point for our community, what we wanted to get done, and for this particular reason we're doing this. But again, I think Lucy has good credentials, and I'm sure we could work with them. But again, that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in real quick too. And Director Boatwright, that's one of the things I appreciate about you, among a bunch of things, but your financial sense, right? And making sure that we spend our ratepayers' dollars absolutely wisely. And again, I can't disagree with you at all on that. I much appreciate that. But I'll say, right, I'm just kind of reminding the group, this is the most important thing this district and this county has ever done. It is the most important thing. It will have impacts to our community forever. So no, I don't want to write an open checkbook. We do have a budget, and I think we can work to modify that budget. But if somebody comes back with a proposal that is just outside of our collective thoughts as far as the budget goes, I'm sure we can work with them to pare it down to something that we think is appropriate and affordable. So anyhow, that's all I had. Thank you.
President Balin.
Yes, I would like to hear from any other director and then from the public, and then perhaps we can have a motion.
Okay, thank you. Director Murphy has her hand up.
Yeah, and I think that this is probably, it's either a question for Steve or for Lisa Westbrook. I'm not sure which one. Right, so after, or maybe it's to you, Abby, because it's referring to kind of like the contract negotiation. So right, with any of these, we are not writing a blank check to anyone across the board with anything that we do at TUD. That is not something that we do. Just want to make that clear in this public meeting. We do not do that with anyone for any reason. No one gets a blank check. All contracts are gone through with a tooth and comb. Just like absolutely to make sure that we're getting what we need, and that there aren't costs in there that we don't, there won't be costs we incur without our approval. Is that a correct statement to make?
Yeah, I mean, I'll chime in as finance director. I mean, ultimately, the board and general manager and myself are responsible for the budget. So everything we do is budgeted, analyzed, watched. Every kind of contract we do, we have standardized professional services contracts that are reviewed by our attorney, that are implemented beforehand. We have formal agreements. Some of the duties and relates or more on a per hour basis, but absolutely not on that. And also, I think Director Balin referred to one time about Bartel being expensive, and I think Bartel is a premier firm in doing that. But part of the problem with one of the meetings we had in there was that unfortunately the meeting went for 3.5 or 4 hours. And again, some of these meetings we need to do that. Some we don't, and we had a lot of additional people that were involved there, but that was really part of the prior GM. So yes, to confirm, Director Murphy, we don't write a blank check to anybody. We use standardized contracts. Some of the items are more specific as to the scope of services and that sort of thing, but this would be like any other contracted agreement that we would mutually agree on, be reviewed by us, usually by the attorney as well, and we can even bring it back to the board if need be.
And so with that, the second part of that question is the process of this. So if we were to decide which company we'd like to go with, and we start down that direction, and then the basically ask them for a bid on it, that we would still be in the position at that point to be like, wow, that's not a price range we're interested in. And they could then either adapt to a price range that we were interested in, or we could continue on with our process. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Just want to know right where we are.
Director Ringen and then Director Boatwright.
So let me get this straight in my mind. We are going to make a selection in a few minutes or not?
That is an option for the board. On the staff memorandum, we did leave it open that it would be a possibility that the board could select a firm. And then, then we would get a proposal, but you could also ultimately authorize the general manager to execute an agreement with the firm as long as it was within the budget that was acceptable. We did include an item, a lump sum in the budget for FY22. And so if your board wanted to do that, you could authorize the general manager to do that once you've selected them within acceptable range, or of course, any other contract could be brought back to the board if that's what your desire would be.
So to follow up on that, I don't recall what that budget amount was. Do you have it there in front of you?
I believe it's $50,000. Is that correct, Steve? Okay.
I don't see how anybody, any firm can do this project for $50,000. That is beyond me. I mean, this is going to run so much over that. And that's why I agree with what President Balin was trying to get at, even though maybe that's not the way to go about it. But I feel, how do we make a decision until we have half an idea, at least half an idea of what this is going to cost? I mean, this is, in my mind, insanity to make a decision. We don't know what the dollar amount is. I don't want to get involved with a group and then find out we got to can them and then go on to somebody else. Doesn't make sense. That just doesn't make sense.
I will just add, and then I'm going to go to Director Boatwright. Those are good comments, Director Ringen. That is for the FY22, which, at the time of execution of an agreement, will probably leave about 6 months of work in this fiscal year. So, correct me if I'm wrong, Don or Steve, but that would be for about 6 months of work necessary. So it could, if it's going to go beyond 6 months, then the board would budget for additional funds towards a PR communications campaign. Anything to add on that, Don?
Yeah, no, that's correct. This board, I suppose, could vote to amend the budget, and I don't think just getting a proposal is locking TUD into anything, right? If it's just completely out of whack, we can just come to the board and discuss it and move on. So.
Right, thank you. Okay, Director Boatwright was next.
First a question. Why was not monetary proposal part of the presentations from the two companies?
Let me make sure I understood your question. Why did we not request a proposal before the presentation?
Yeah, cost of scope of work or anticipated work that they were doing. Why was that not included with their presentation today?
Well, in previous discussions, I'll answer this the best that I could, but in previous discussions with the board, there was not a clear direction on the scope of work. Some board members felt that would be something you would develop with a firm and get ideas from the firm to leave it open, sort of like some of my comments were earlier in this meeting, was that we didn't want to box in a firm to what we thought exactly how the campaign should run, but to get a scope of work and ideas from them, from professional services that they have performed for other districts throughout California that have been working in this current climate. So this was really an opportunity and with providing the board with the list of almost 10 firms before, and then having a conversation at the October 14th meeting to talk about firms. And that was the direction of the board on October 14th, was to bring forward 3 firms, the top 3 firms, to hear their presentations. So that's what we did.
Okay. Well, I find it a rather difficult position to be in to make a decision. There's not a contract being presented before us. There's not a scope of work that either company is, being asked to make a proposal on. It's just all pretty vague to me. Certainly both of these two companies are qualified in, public relations. So but I'm extremely leery that, we have the basis to move forward with a motion to decide either way without some very serious questions being answered first. So there again, where do the wheels go on this cart?
Yeah, definitely understood. And just to echo something that Don said before was, moving forward and asking for proposals, whether it's of one firm or both firms, definitely does not lock the board into hiring a PR firm unless you wish to leave some discretion to the general manager. But those are all options that your board has to consider. Director Murphy had her hand up next, and then President Balin, and then Eric Johnson.
Thank you. And this, again, it's kind of a question more than a statement. And that is, could we, because what we've slated for fiscal year 2022 is $50,000, could we put that out and say, what could you do for this? I know that that's with the Phoenix Lake project, when you had a specific amount of money, that is what you asked is what can you do within this chunk of money that we've allocated to this project. So I'm wondering if we could do that with this. Let's say we've allocated $50,000 for fiscal year 2022. From what would give us a plan and budget for that? What do you think, Abby?
Yeah, I think that's definitely yeah, thank you. I think that's definitely an option.
Okay. Anybody else, staff wise, I think that is or isn't an option?
No, I think it's an option. I wouldn't want to if I were in this all by myself, I wouldn't show my hand, right? I'm going to buy a car. I'm not going to go tell them what my budget is.
Yeah, but with PR, again, I think Director Boatwright is spot on. Like, we're giving them no information as far as how big we're willing to go. And with PR, you can go as big as you want, and you can spend as much money as you want. And so if you, I don't think we'll get, if we have a amount we're willing, that we have budgeted for this, and we say, what could you do for this? And then you can have the second part be what I talked about earlier, is optimally, what do you think optimally would really be the way we should go, and what would the budget for that be? But if we have allocated $50,000, I think we should also find out what they can do for $50,000.
And I'll just chime in here real quick before the other board members, the other staff chimes in. We face budget challenges all the time. We wake up this morning, there's main line, there's a flume breaks, whatever. So, when we budgeted that $50,000, we didn't know at all what we were going to do. I mean, the prior administration here basically wanted to do a town hall, and that's kind of a town hall on a video and set up the website, and that's where we're going with this. And then at this board's direction, what I've heard in no uncertain terms is, we're behind the 8 ball here. We should have been doing this a long time ago. Get up and go. And so, here we are trying to get up and go. And I don't think we ought to limit. And I don't think we should just spend $50,000 and say, that's all we had. We're not going to spend any more. This is a monumental job. We need to decide what the board wants to do, how we want to run this public relations campaign, and whatever it takes to be successful. I mean, if it's more, then it's more. I don't want to limit it and just do a half-assed job, pardon my language. But I think it's imperative that we decide what kind of campaign, how are we going to do that, and when are we going to do that? If we want a full-blown proposal, scope of service, and everything else, it's going to take some additional time. And that's just going to move back some of these other things as far as when we start this and how we go about doing it. And it may affect the timing of the acquisition, may affect the timing of the 218 process, may affect a lot on that. But again, as far as budgeting, we can adapt, we can challenge, we can go forward. The purchasing policy basically discusses in there that, the general manager has the right in there that anything within $150,000, if he, wants to do it, he can make contracts. And I'm not proposing to do that in this instance, but just to kind of put in context, if we all think it's definitely going to be under $150,000, or hopefully it will, but maybe what I'm hearing from you all, you're not comfortable with it, that we go back to the two firms and we put some dollars on it. But that will mean extending this process. And, we can look at the budget and do that. But, the real goal of this was for us to get this acquisition done and move forward with our timetable. So I just wanted to add in there, we can do the challenge. We don't have to look at only 50,000. We have options.
Yeah, and I just want to clarify something in there, because I think oftentimes the term "this board has given" or something, and I want to speak for this board member, which is I am not on the side that I think that this needs to be a full-blown. I think that the education process should have started a while back. But I am not on the page that this has to be a professional entity doing it. I feel like we have outreach. We have someone on staff that is our outreach person. We do know the community. I feel like if people have the facts to this, it's a slam dunk that this is the right thing for our county to move ahead on. I feel like that there's a lot to be said that the last board, everyone who's been in on this process, staff and board members over the time that you guys have been engaging in this, all feel like it's the right thing for the community, and that the big issue is getting enough of the information out to the public that they understand the same things that we understand, while staying within the confines of that there is some information that we are not allowed, that isn't public information, that we are not allowed to share. But I think this whole thing, we can spend a lot of money on something that we don't need to spend a lot of money on. And that is a worry that I have with, if we go with Lucy and company, we're going to be spending a lot of money on focus groups. Are not cheap. And I think if you do focus groups before you do education, you end up with a lot of things that you're having to re-educate people on, because now they've spent a lot of time with erroneous information, and they've been building their opinion off that erroneous information. And so I think that we can end up, we can pay as much as we want on this thing, because that is how PR works. You can pay as much as you want on it. But I just wanted to chime in again that all along you've seen me pushing forward on getting information out there, dragging my feet on hiring a professional entity to do it for us, because I do feel like we are a community-based information with our feet and hands and minds in the community and in the system, and that the facts speak for themselves, that this is the right thing to be doing. And I think because of that, I think it is reasonable to say within $50,000 that we've allocated for fiscal year 2022, what can you do to push us in the right direction for this year?
Okay, President Balin, you are next.
Yes, it's 10 minutes to noon, and according to our bylaws, we need to agree, all of us, that we're going to stay over a little bit beyond our 3-hour limit. So I'm just, and we have another item to go here. I have in listening to Director Boatwright and Director Ringen, I think it's really, really important that if you're asking questions, that we make sure that your questions get answered. So if a board member wants a range of prices, that we ask for it so that we're not going, well, how come we didn't ask about it? Everybody here has a responsibility to say, this is what I need in order to make a decision. And if we're not ready to make a decision, then we shouldn't make a decision. If we need more information to make a decision, then we need to ask for it now. So I'm hearing that I'm hearing that from 2 board members. I could be totally wrong. But that was Director Boatwright and Director Ringen. So I want to walk back. If we're not ready for any action right now, I want to give the board some breathing room to come forward with what they would need in order to make a decision.
Eric?
I'll be brief, but I wasn't sure if President Balin was looking for consensus because we are reaching that 3-hour time frame. I can be very brief, but if you want to go forward that way, that's fine. Otherwise, I have a few brief comments.
Please go ahead, Eric.
Okay. Yeah, so there's a couple things here when I hear about contracting and trying to determine scope and fee. In construction contracts, it's very clear what the scope is. And so you get a GMP or guaranteed maximum price for a contract, and you select your contractor based on their bid. The lowest bid typically wins. In this professional services type of scope of work, where there's a couple things that we're struggling with here. One is, what exactly is the scope? None of us are public affairs, public relations experts. So, we don't really know the scope that we're looking at here. We kind of rely on them. So it's chicken and egg thing. The other thing we don't know is where the finish line is on this effort. So it's really hard to ask a consultant to give you a proposal that you can honestly evaluate, not knowing those 2 factors. Now, I've heard public relations and this PR campaign is one of the most important things we can do. From individual board members, I understand from Director Murphy, the approach may be a little different, but I think the key thing here is that it's a qualifications based, it's very personal. I heard that from Raftelis. It's a personalized message. They want to visit with each and every board member and really figure out what the message they're trying to convey to the public is, which I think is really important. And in the end, you make that selection based on in your heart and honestly what you feel is best for the community. And then you do a not to exceed. I mean, we do this all the time, not to exceed fee without prior board authorization, and you monitor their progress and you hold them accountable. Where this will really come, where the rubber hits the road in this is, how good is their project management? How efficient are they with their time? Do they get the deliverables done with less man hours? And when I listened to both presentations, I really felt like Raftelis conveyed more information in more compact way. And that's where your money is, because their bill out rate might be a lot higher, but if they don't get to the finish line, it takes them half the time to get the message out to the community. You're going to save money that way. So those are the comments I have.
Good comments, Eric. Director Boatwright.
President Balin, I think you were also included in wanting to know cost or proposal as well. At the beginning of this discussion, and that's just where I'm at. I certainly do not want to downplay the importance of public education to gather public support for our endeavor. But as a person in the general public and responsibility to ratepayers, I'd kind of like to know a little bit about the ballpark that we're going to be in. That's just where I'm at with this. And certainly not trying to hold up the start line or predict where the finish line is on it. So
I got a follow-up question then to the full board. being that $50,000 is budgeted, is that a safe place to start? And then if we get a proposal above that, we bring it back to the board? Let me be a little more clear. If we get a proposal from one of the outfits, and if the budget is above $50,000, we bring it back to the board.
I'm sorry, are you using this as a decision-making factor? Like, are you making a decision based off of the, this is a public meeting. They can just look at, listen to the public meeting and be like, oh, we have to do a proposal for $50,000. If we do $50,000, then we're in. So I'm unclear what you're saying, Don.
I just was trying to put some bookends on this, as far as we have the discussion now is about not so much who, but how much. So I'm trying to understand what the board would be comfortable with if we do not exceed, if we get a proposal that does not exceed $50,000, would that be acceptable?
How are we, like, what are we asked? What I'm not clear on is, are we, sorry, and I see Jeff Kern's hand up. I'm not, in your question, I'm not clear on, are we asking for proposals? What are we telling them the scope is? What are we telling them the amount is that we're willing to go with? Like there's so many variables out there. I agree with what Eric Johnson said, which was, how do you make a proposal based on, and Director Boatwright said that too.
Yeah, I guess
how do we make a proposal based on?
Yeah, I'm thinking that having a conversation with them, Abby and Lisa, and maybe myself, others, who knows, have a conversation with either one or both of them to build that scope of work and then get a proposal. This is not my area of expertise, obviously, so I was just trying to get to the finish line, if that's possible.
Yeah, I am interested in one, I'm not interested in the other. So that's where I'm at.
I'd just like to chime in there, Don, and say, if a bid came in under 50,000, it depends on what they were going to do for that lesser price and how we feel about that. Because I think it was Steve's comments and others that we got to get this done, and it really sounds a little general, but if it's going to cost quite a bit more than 50,000, and we have confidence in that firm in what they're proposing to do, then I'm all for it, because we've got one crack at this thing, and that's it. And we've got to be successful. I've said it before, and so we got one chance to get this right and get it done. And Lisa, you mentioned it being a slam dunk. And I agree with you that it is. Unfortunately, I'm not so sure there's people out there who think it is, who agree with us that it's a slam dunk. And we need to get that point across hard to them so that as many people as possible believe that it's a slam dunk. And that's why we're having this discussion today with these two firms. But as far as the 50 grand goes, I mean, that's what we have in the budget. If it goes above that, I would assume we'd bring it back before the board and want to chat about it, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
President Balin, you were next.
Thank you. Don, I mean, this was what we have been budgeting for a year, and this project could be going for a few years. So it could, as Director Ringen pointed out, be definitely and probably will exceed the 50. I would think it would. In the procurement authority, Don is limited to 150,000, but this is a campaign, and it would build up momentum and build on one thing, build on the other. I think what I was impressed with, by the way, I was impressed with both. I felt Lucy was actually, she listened and she was very flexible and wanted to really see what the community was all about and go forward that way. Both of them are good. And so just to reiterate what Don, if you want to go back, I just don't, part of me says maybe we are ready to make a decision to pick one, but then the money aspect and Director Boatwright, I totally agree. I just want to make sure that your concerns are represented. I brought up the money thing, the first thing, and it is important. And so I feel like they should show us what they can do for that money. That may tip the scale. We don't know unless we get some kind of figures back and the bang for the buck.
Lisa?
So, I think we've had a great discussion, but I agree with what Director Murphy said. We need to make sure, I know money's important. You need to make sure that the relationship with the firm is who you want to have that relationship with. Whether they listen, they understand that this is going to affect the entire community, not just TUD. So I think that although we should get a request for proposals, I don't want to feel like we're boxing ourselves in, because this is going to be a long project. It's going to not just be 6 months. It's going to be a year. It's going to be 2 years. The relationship is key. And I'll be working primarily, and Dawn most likely, with whoever that company is. So I think that, to me, I would suggest just getting a request for proposal and really seeing what they both have to offer, and then making that final decision. And that's kind of where I would see this going. But I don't feel like we should box ourselves in, because there's some great creativity out there. You really want to get the community involved. That's the most important thing. And starting with education, and because there are a lot of people that still just do not understand what TUD is. And we have got to start there and then bring them along to why this is so important, not just for TUD, but for the entire community.
Okay, good comments, Lisa. Thank you. So at this point, would the board, I think I heard from a number of folks, but I don't know if it's consensus of the board. So I'll just ask, would we like to get a proposal from both firms and bring those proposals back for board consideration at the next board meeting? Okay, I'm seeing a thumbs up from Director Ringen and a thumbs up from President Balin, Director Boatwright, Director Kearns.
Oh, I'm to unmute. On that, I would like to see a proposal, but I would like to see what they can do for 50,000. I don't want an open-ended proposal.
Okay.
Since we're not telling the scope of work, we have to tell them within something. And so if we don't know what the scope of work is, then at least give them a price range to go within, to give us a proposal, so that there's something we're looking at.
So as long as you can butt in, I'll butt in. I think we need to have a little bit of a idea of how far this thing can go. I mean, we need to have some parameters here. And 50,000 ain't gonna get us where we gotta go.
Dr. Ringen, so do you mean 50,000 won't get us through the next 6.5 months of our fiscal year?
Not if it's done correctly, as far as I'm concerned. If we pick a group, they're going to stand on the gas, and they are going to have a lot of staff time, a lot of all sorts of things involved in this. And this is not a $50,000 deal. This is much more than that, and we need to plan on that, period.
Okay, well, I'm looking for direction. So just please give me some direction.
President Balin, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think we hit a consensus, or majority of the board, that is requesting that staff, and that would include Abby and Lisa and Dawn, who have to work with this firm, and has already, I believe Lisa Westbrook has had experience with one of them, and Steve's had experience with another, that we go back and we get some range of proposals, some price tags attached to those over the long haul. It's a campaign. And I think I wrote it down. Lucy had said that it was gaining support for the project and paying for it. Okay. And Melissa had a similar thing, which is just looking at where we want to go. So I would think that there is a range of tools that are appropriate over 1 or 2 years. I would think of this campaign. I don't think we're going to get it done in 6 months. And so perhaps I'm just saying to Dawn, you may want to talk with each one of these to look at how they milestone it and benchmark it out and what they expect. Lucy, I think, gave us a timeline, a hypothetical timeline, so that we can kind of get an idea of what it would cost at certain services along the campaign. If you guys could do that and then present it back to the board, we'd actually have a better feel for what each one would be doing with that money.
Director Murphy?
Yeah, I'm going to go back to, I suggested it, I think twice already, but that thing of what can you do for 50,000 in fiscal year 2022, which is what we have done. And then also what do you think the overall scope and cost of this project is? Because right now we have 50,000 allocated for fiscal year 2022. That's a solid thing. And then I think that then the second, so those two things together, I think would be helpful.
President Balin.
Yes, so Director Ringen, I want to make sure that your direction is captured here, because your sensibilities say this campaign is going to be cost a lot more from soup to nuts. And if with this direction for staff in talking with these folks, would that satisfy your concern? Is that we do have a ballpark of what the whole cost of the campaign could cost?
Yes, you pretty much encapsulated it or captured it. I've been involved with numerous groups in the past, none of them with something as important as this, but with important projects and budgets in order to be able to present to whatever group it is of people that we needed to get their support. And also, having been in construction all these years, it never works out the way you think it will, no matter how well you plan it out. And so what I'm trying to say here is that this board needs to be ready for the fact that 50,000 isn't even going to be, I mean, that's just the down payment. And if we want this group, whoever we choose, excuse me, to stand on the gas from day one, let me tell you, we are going to have to cut some checks, and we got to be ready. It can't come as a surprise, and it ain't going to be 50,000 bucks. I'm just going to tell you that. It's not reality. And to ask a group, well, what can you do for 50,000? And they'll probably laugh us out of the room. It's like, well, we can't do your project, that's for damn sure.
The board authorized that, right? That's what we approved earlier, right? Am I making a mistake here? I think that.
Are you butting in again?
I'm asking a question on this that is that came for board approval, right?
As part of the budget process, it was in the budget. It's been the budget for a few years now from previous, and we just didn't change the budget amount. So yes, okay. It did get adopted, but probably wasn't highlighted.
Go ahead, President Balin.
Okay, just to wrap this up, I think that we are giving some direction to get some cost estimates for these groups, and we're going to entrust Don to discuss it. He's probably going to at least talk about what we had budgeted this year. And again, like Eric is saying, these are service contracts, and so we may have sticker shock, like Director Ringen said, but let's just go forward and have Don work with these folks and get a better feel for what it would cost and what they can do.
Using that minimum and maximum amount of work, scope of work. Kind of what would they propose minimally and maximum? What their minimum proposal would be versus their maximum proposal. Is that safe, or leave it up to them?
Well, it would be typical of them, I would think, to they've done this before. Both groups have done this before. They kind of know these long-term sustained campaigns that have to pivot, okay, and that build on momentum, et cetera. And they know that there is a finish line. We don't know when, because there's a lot of things out of our control, like negotiating with PG&E, but there is a finish line. So to me, what would it take in a campaign to get to that finish line? So I guess that's what I would say, rather than a Cadillac, Volkswagen, it's what would get us there.
Okay.
Because we cannot change horses, I don't think, in the middle of the stream. Maybe we can, but.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Ringen.
Thank you. I'm going to give you an example, a down the world example. And it's simplistic, just like me. Haven't been in the structural pest industry since, oh my God, 1963. And an inspector since 1968. Many times I went out to a home and I would find during the inspection subterranean termites, let's say, and it's a stucco home. So the homeowner would want to know, well, okay, when I got done with the inspection, well, okay, so how much is it going to cost? And I'd say, well, I can tell you what it's going to take to fix it up to the floor line underneath the house. But if they went up into that stucco wall, I can't tell you at all what it's going to be. We'll have to open it up and find out. And that's where we're at with this, really. When you come down to it, that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about something that we don't know. No one's able to tell us. And we need to narrow that down a little bit so the board feels comfortable in making a decision that's gonna, the ratepayers can live with, and so can we. Thank you.
Understood. Go ahead, Director Balin.
Yeah, Don, so are you and Abby and Lisa Westbrook, are you guys pretty clear on what you need to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Speaking for myself, yes.
Thank you.
Oh, Abby?
Thank you. I thought I'd just wait in line, and I'm sorry, I had a clap sign first. I thought that was the hand raise, so sorry about that. The only thing I was going to add is I think the firms, whether we request from one or both, are going to give us a proposal for a work product that they feel is the best course for a successful project. So we may find it that if we did limit to a number, that they may say, I don't know if I can do a successful project, and I don't want to put out a work that isn't up to the quality that I feel is necessary for success. So that was the only thing. I think I'm a couple people late on that comment, so I apologize if it's no longer relevant, but that's my opinion. I think they're really going to they're going to let us know what they think is needed for success, and they may or may not be able to say that because they don't think it would work. That's it.
Thank you, Abby. Director Murphy, and then Director Boatwright.
Yeah, this is a question for you, Don. Don, you just said that you are clear on what you're moving forward on. I'm not clear with what you're moving forward on, so I was wondering if you could speak that for us, so that I at least could know what you think you are moving forward on.
Well, this is what I think I understand. We're going to reach out to both companies. Abby and I and Lisa, unless somebody else wants to join in, we'll huddle up first, and we'll get our ducks in a row is what exactly we're asking them to do, right? And be consistent with both of them, like types of outreach, length of time, and things along those lines. And once we have a consistent ask of both companies, we'll reach out to them and then ask the question.
I'm sorry, ask what questions?
For a proposal. Like I said, Lisa and Abby and I we'll get together, and between the three of us, we'll outline what we think a scope of services would look like, right? And then once the three of us build this, we'll reach out to both of them and try to get a very consistent question, an exact question if we can. Here's what we'd like to have done for a length of time, and then get a proposal from them to be able to judge which one, the quality of the proposal and the amount of the proposal. Am I saying that about right, Abby or Lisa Westbrook? Or?
I think so. Just in maybe slightly different way. Just we'll request a proposal with some parameters on the timeline in which we feel like the acquisition will take. I mean, we understand that there are some variables in there, but we're going to provide both firms the same information that they can judge what their successful public relations campaign would be to get us to where we want to be, which is community understanding and community support for the PG&E acquisition. And then get a proposal from them and they may vary. Let's say one might think we need to do 3 town halls. Maybe one might say we need to have this many, whatever. So that's what I think we mean by we don't want to put them in a box. They might have very different methodologies, as well as, check-in, what they feel like is adequate for check-ins. Like, you saw from Raftelis on their presentation, they said, whether it's a weekly check-in, making sure we're holding them accountable to what they said they're going to do. And then overall in the proposal, I would expect to see similar to, it was very generic on the Lucy and Company presentation, but some kind of a timeline for the different types of activities that they'll be doing. So that's what we would expect to see in a proposal. But again, both firms would receive the exact same information from us so that they can build that proposal on.
And that would be developed by you, Lisa Westbrook, and Don Perkins.
And based on all of the input that we've heard from your board, and with Lisa, I'm sure has access to several communications proposals that she could look up that would have, they're very similar in the scope of work. They keep them pretty generic, so it allows for that flexibility for the firm.
And so timeline, cost, you're providing them with a scope.
Correct, but with a general scope so that they can add in. Yeah, exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Boatwright?
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we table this item, awaiting further information to come back from staff.
I will second that.
Would you be, Director Boatwright, would you be open to Dawn bringing this back at the first meeting in December?
Yeah, as soon as the information is available, that's fine.
So that I don't think that this needs to be tabled. I think we've given him direction, unless you're tabling the direction. I think you would want a date to bring this back, perhaps, which would be the very first meeting in December, so we can decide.
If the information's available, at that first meeting in December, that's fine. There's no short end timeline on it, but I believe the item does need to be tabled, awaiting further information. And there's currently a motion and a second on the floor.
Right. Well, now we're moving into discussion on that.
Okay.
Okay, that's all. I'm just looking to see why I don't see the tabling. I mean, we're giving staff direction and we don't have to vote. So I just kind of question what the tabling is about if we're already wrapped up.
I think it's just a official.
Yeah, parliamentary procedure. As far as if the item's coming back to the board for decision later.
Okay, is there any further discussion before we open that up to the public and then vote on that? Director Ringen.
Just want to make sure that if we agree to table this, that it will come back at the first meeting in December for a decision. I mean, I'm not that familiar with tabling things, so that's why I'm asking.
I can address that if you want.
Director Murphy.
Yeah, so with this, it's just a way to push it forward. And so Don, Abby, and Lisa know what they're coming back to the board with. What was put on the agenda was possibly deciding which firm we were on. That's what's getting, that's the piece that's getting tabled until we have the more information. The more information will get presented when it's available. If it's available for that first December meeting, then we will look at it then. If for some reason it's not available, then clearly we can't make a decision based off that information. So the tabling makes it possible to table it till that information is provided. When that information is provided, then it's fine to put on the next agenda, which would just be a process thing, administrative thing between the president and the GM, I believe. I believe that's how it all goes. So it's just a piece to say, we're done discussing it for right now. More information is coming. When the more information is coming, discussion opens again.
Any other questions from the board before we open it to public comment? Okay, Corey, is there any public comment?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, so what we are, the motion is that we table the decision piece until staff brings us, at the time staff brings us more information. Did I get that right? That was the motion and the second.
That's correct.
Then Melissa, will you please call for the vote?
Okay. Director Balin,
Aye.
Director Boatright,
Aye.
Director Kearns,
Aye.
Director Murphy,
Aye.
Director Ringen.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. So in the interest of time, I'm really okay. I think it's important that we do the recognition, but I wanted to check it out with everybody to continue since we're beyond our 3-hour limit. Are we all in favor of continuing on with the meeting? Okay, I'm seeing that as a yes. Okay, so I think, Abby, this is, Melissa, will you please read the next item?
Okay, item number 5, recognizing district personnel eligible for the Employee Longevity Recognition Award 2021.
Okay, thank you again. I will be concise, but I do definitely want to give the time to these employees who we are recognizing today. So each year, at the end of the year, we recognize employees who have 10 years, 20 years, and 25 years of service for a recognition award. So this was a resolution 8197, so that was adopted in 1997, that we recognize employees in this manner. So we have 3 employees who are receiving this recognition award for longevity, and I'm going to go ahead and read through the brief resolution for that. So it is a resolution recognizing district personnel eligible for the Employee Longevity Recognition Award 2021. Whereas the Tuolumne Utilities District adopted by resolution number 8197, the Employee Longevity Recognition Award policy, and the district sincerely appreciates the dedication and commitment of long-term employees. And the district recognizes the invaluable institutional knowledge retained by long-term employees and acknowledges that long-term employees add leadership and stability to the workforce, building confidence and morale. And now, therefore, let be it resolved, the Board of Directors of Tuolumne Utilities District as follows. Section 1, the Board of Directors hereby recognizes the following district employees for their continued years of service. Starting with the 20-year award, we have Robert Dittler, who is a Utility Worker 3 for the Construction Maintenance Department. Robert was originally hired in April of 2001 as a Utility Worker 1 in the Distribution Department. He did a short out-of-class stint as meter reader and then was promoted to Utility Worker 2 in November 2003. He worked as a warehouse worker from March of 2006 to August of 2007, and then back to utility worker in the construction maintenance department, and then finally was promoted in November of 2012 to his current position of utility worker 3. Appreciate Robert Dittler. He works very hard for the construction maintenance department, and we're really proud of all of his accomplishments here, and just wanted to say thank you so much for his dedicated service. Trevor Cowden is our second 20-year recipient of this award, and Trevor Cowden is our water superintendent in operations, the water treatment division. Trevor was originally hired in May of 2001, originally as a utility worker in wastewater. And in July of 2003, he changed tracks over onto the water treatment side as a water operator in training. And then by August 2007 was a grade 3 water operator. So he went very fast through those ranks. And then he was promoted to water foreman in 2014. And then in June 2015, he was promoted to his current position of water superintendent. So Trevor, also very dedicated employee, lots of nights and weekends and alarms and things like that. But he's dedicated to this district, to this community, to his employees, and just wanted to say thank you to Trevor Cowden for his dedicated service. Finally, but not least, our 10-year award recipient, Louis Paz. He is one of our construction maintenance foremen in operations, and he was hired February of 2011, originally as an heavy equipment operator. After many years operating heavy equipment in the private sector, we were lucky to get him. He's a very, very skilled operator. He quickly gained his distribution certification up to a grade 3, just within a short 2 years of time of being hired, and has worked out of class on numerous occasions as the construction maintenance foreman in his time as equipment operator. And then just this year, proud to say in July of 2021, he was promoted to his current position of construction maintenance foreman. And that was a very well-deserved promotion for him. He does a lot of wonderful work and provides good leadership for his crew. And again, wanted to say thank you to Louis Paz. So with that, section 2 is the board hereby expresses appreciation to the above listed employees for their continued dedication to the district and the public that they represent. So I do recommend that the board adopt this resolution. Melissa, which number is it?
A resolution 2421.
2421 to recognize these employees. Thank you.
May I say a couple of words real quick and be brief? I'd love to. So I've worked for all of my time with all of these people. Collectively, you can see, you did the math, they have 50 years of experience here at TUD. That's valuable institutional knowledge. Each one of them are different in their character, but all quality people. Much of them are multi-generational people for this county, so they or their family have been here for a long, long time. They're solid standout individuals, both personally and professionally, and I'm just proud to have been able to work with them for this many years and looking forward to working with them for many more years. Anyway, thank you guys, all of you.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you, Don.
And thank you, Abby. That's a great resolution for Robert, Trevor, and Louis. Really great, talented, dedicated, and appreciate their service. Yes, Director Boatwright.
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, all three of these guys. I got to spend, let's see, it was probably about 18 years with Robert and Trevor, and then probably about 8 years familiar with Louis, but all great, gentlemen dedicated to doing their work. Really appreciate them for their service. Thank you.
Director Boatwright, would you like to make the motion before we, first of all, I'll ask for public comment, but I think that'd be really cool since you work with these guys to make the motion.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Madam President.
Okay.
We do have Director Kearns with his hand up.
Okay, there you go, Director.
Real quick before you do the motion.
I'll wait for the motion and talk about it on discussion.
Okay.
Madam President, I would like to make the motion that we adopt resolution, was it 2024?
24.
And recognizing Robert Diddler, Trevor Cowden, and Louis Paz for their longevity award.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Before we go for a vote, is there any public discussion, Corey?
Not at the moment, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, Melissa, will you call for the roll? And then Jeff Kearns.
We had Director Kearns.
Okay, go ahead, Director Kearns, and then I think Director Murphy.
I just wanted to congratulate all three as well, and I think this is one of the key elements to the success of TUD. I mean, to have these employees who come to work here, who stay here, who consistently do a great job over the years, and I echo those comments that Director Boatwright and General Manager Perkins said about both of them, and got a lot of respect for all three of them, and congratulations. Thank you.
Go Go ahead, Director Murphy.
And I just wanted to reiterate that as well. Just thank you so much for your service to this organization and for delivering water and keeping everything going down through the system. So just appreciate your dedication and that this is your life's work. So thank you so much for making this your life's work.
Okay, with that, Melissa, will you please call for the vote?
Okay, Director Balin,
Aye.
Director Boatright,
Aye.
Director Kearns,
Aye.
Director Murphy,
Aye.
Director Ringen.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. And thanks again, Abby, for the resolution. It's so important to recognize our dedicated workers.
Thank you so much.
And that moves us to staff reports. Who would like to go first from staff?
I don't have any further to report, Director Balin.
Nothing further from me.
Thank you.
Me neither.
Thank you.
No further report. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes staff and directors' communications and reports. Yes, Director Boatright, and then Director Ringen.
Just jumping in there to go first. Madam President, I have nothing to report at this time.
Thank you, Director Ringen, and then Director Murphy.
1027 attended the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association meeting at Blue Goose in Loomis. It was a fantastic, informative meeting, and I'll leave it at that. Others will, I'm sure, report on that. 11-1 attended, participated in the TUD Water Committee meeting, and I will defer to President Balin on that, as she is the chairman of that group. One thing that I do want to bring up real quick, I would like to request, I'd like to see staff to provide information to the board on the steel-toed boots policy allowance. Who receives that allowance and how often? I've been watching this for numerous years now, go through the claim summary, and it bewilders me. I know, having been in construction as long as I was, how important steel-toed shoes are to construction workers so that they don't get their feet crushed because they're handling heavy items and working amongst heavy equipment and everything else. But we have, I looked this month, we have allowances running from $127.75. No, I'm sorry, $107.24 to $127.75 to $183.16 to $285 to $350.49. It doesn't make any good sense to me. And then last month, I didn't bring it up, but I will now. One of our engineers got a steel-toed allowance, boot allowance. I'm wondering if that person thinks that their paperwork is so heavy on the desk that it's going to topple the desk over onto their toes and crush them. I think the board needs to understand how this works. And I totally understand how important it is to the crew members, but I think we need a little clarity on this and a little bit more understanding as to why the differences in the dollar amounts and how often. and why? I mean, if you're an engineer and you get a steel-toed boot allowance, I would think it's going to take you probably 30 years to wear that pair of boots out. While if you're on the construction crew, every year makes sense to me anyways, but I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, it took me about 10 years, Director Ringen, before I needed new steel toe boots. And I think someone else in the engineering department, it took probably 4 or 5 years.
Thank you, Director Murphy.
Oh, would you like me to respond to Director Ringen or about the policy or not?
Well,
I think it needs to be an agenda item.
Okay, it's part of the MOU. I'm happy to send a link to the MOU and the section number to where it's addressed.
That would be
Why
very
the different dollar amounts?
Yeah, the dollar amount is the maximum dollar amount for the annual boot allowance is within the MOU section 5.13.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Director Murphy.
Yeah, just a quick report. Also went to the Mountain Counties Water Resource Association meeting up in Loomis. That was great. And then the other thing this month was with the water infrastructure class for Columbia College that Tom Hofstra is teaching. We went out to the wastewater treatment plant and took the students out there on Tuesday. And Director Boatwright, thanks for joining us out there. That was fantastic. And staff, thanks for being out there with us as well. It was a really informative day that the students really enjoyed, and really as part of their water infrastructure course was an integral part. Again, I'd reported back that we had gone up to the Sonora freshwater treatment plant with those same students the week before that. So that was great. Thank you, Don, for GM Don Perkins, for helping organize all that. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Director Kearns, anything to report?
No, nothing to report. I really am disappointed that I missed the Mountain Counties meeting. Unfortunately, it couldn't be helped. But I'm glad the rest of you got to go up there and take part. Other than that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Kearns. I'll make mine brief. On October 27th, there was up at Loomis, and that was a great attendance. We exceeded our expectations for sponsors, and it was really great to kind of pass the torch to the next generation. Then November 1st, as Director Ringen pointed out, we had a water committee meeting. We reviewed a couple of variances. Thank you to Antonio. He's very well prepared, was able to really dial in on some of those maps. He gave us a lot of detail so that we could really take that time to examine these variances. As we all know, they're very important. And then we also had a discussion about purchasing a tank site, which we had a good discussion again about staff's due diligence on that. And then we had an open discussion on energy costs, sustainability, alternatives, and state direction and policy development. And that was a really great discussion. And I'm thinking that this may roll over to our over full board strategic plan, so we can really give that its attention. So I think one of the takeaways at Loomis was the adapting. How are we as agencies adapting and becoming sustainable, adapting to climate change? So that certainly will be a long-term theme. Then in the afternoon, I went to the Water Policy Committee that is Supervisor Jaron Brandon oversees, and I believe Lisa Westbrook, you were there, and of course Don Perkins was there, and so that was very interesting. I think they wanted some more information about where our system is and where it isn't, and so I'm sure we'll be doing some follow-up presentations of our infrastructure. With that, I have, yes, on Friday, I also went up to the Mountain County. We had a board debriefing and we approved some bylaw revisions and we just hit the ground running. That was just this past Friday, November 5th. And we're beginning to plan our calendar and our programs for the year. And with that, I have nothing, excuse me, further to report. Is there anything else to report before I adjourn the meeting? Okay, well, I'm sure everybody's hungry, so seeing no further discussion, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.